the link.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll start showing it now, and we're live. Hello, I'm talking right now with Satan. After having gotten off a debate stream with Sargon and some friends of his.
I wouldn't
How you
call
doing,
it a
Satan?
debate stream, really. It was kind of just you bitching at him and him
Mm,
like calling you names.
something like that. I think I could have done better because I probably could have gone harder on him. But he generally, when people approach me in good faith, my knee-jerk reactions respond with good faith back. I
I
think that was a mistake on
didn't
my
think
part.
that it sounded like you were responding in good faith, but hang on, let me tweet this shit out and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
Sure. In the meantime, how have you been doing, Satan?
I'm hanging in there. About to go up to the racetrack this weekend. It's going to be nice.
Cool. Yeah. I've noticed that you've taken a step back from the whole Gamergate shenanigans.
Yeah, Gamergate is kind of stupid. I'm getting fucking tired of it.
I
All these
agree.
fucking Gamergate nerds. And they always
Well,
show up in your mentions, and when you're trying to troll somebody, they like reply in the thread and try to take over and shit. It's really obnoxious.
mm-hmm. It's just it goes on and on and on and on and on. What can I say? I'm interested in it because I still think that there are issues that need to be talked about, and well, I think that
People have given up on the issues that I care about. Nobody even gives a shit that nothing happened to Zoe Quinn for fucking saying that a bunch of suicidal nerds were trying to attack her.
Yep, I completely agree with you there. I think that Zoe Quinn should get dunked
And
completely.
Stitch is in the fucking UN. It's ridiculous. And we have Sargon Avocado over here talking shit about Gamergate nerds and feminists, and nobody even gives a shit about Gamergate anymore. I don't know. It's obnoxious. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Right.
We're here to talk about your argument with Sargon of Akkad and what exactly your problem with Sargon is. So what's your problem with Sargon of Akkad?
He likes to spin narratives. He likes to smear people's names. He doesn't try to be accurate in his rhetoric. He basically goes for whatever works as opposed to whatever's the truth. To be honest, he basically just wants to spin everything the way he wants to spin it.
Okay, but what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is he is a big YouTuber. He's big in media. I would consider him a journalist because he performs regular acts of journalism, as far as I'm concerned, and he's not living up to ethical standards. I wasn't able to get into all these particular issues that I'm bringing up with Sargon because he had limited time. If he was on the stream longer, I would have been able to, or if I was allowed to talk after Sargon left, I may have been able to do that on that stream. But unfortunately, nothing of that nature happened. Now, you specifically had some disagreements with the way that I approached this matter, so I'd like to hear them.
So when you start talking to somebody and you want to have a debate or a conversation, you usually have a goal in mind, right?
Correct.
So like if I want to talk to you about this, then maybe I want to improve your message, or maybe I just want to dunk you and make myself look better to other people, or but there's some sort of purpose. And a lot of the times when people argue with each other, they're going for that. They're looking for the dunking. They're not trying to understand the other person's point of view. And I don't think that either of you in that stream were trying to understand the other person's point of view. I think that you were both going for points. You're trying to score the dunks and the 3-pointers. And that's retarded.
That's fair enough.
Shame on both of you for engaging in that.
Well, the only problem with your standard there is, unfortunately, when you're in debate with somebody, if the opponent has no honor, there is no point in giving him the honor exchange, and you have to basically counter bad faith rhetoric with bad faith rhetoric. That is the nature of the beast.
Well, then you don't continue talking about the point. You should segue onto something else and attack like the reasons or the behaviors that they're engaging in that are wrong with the argument. Like, people will often, in response to something that I say on Twitter, reply and say the exact opposite of what I said, and then say, "Is that what you mean?" And that kind of pisses me off. It's a dishonest debate tactic. You're just saying the opposite. You're putting words in people's mouths, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, it's obvious that that person's no longer trying to understand your point of view. And you can just start making fun of them and shit. And obviously, I'm going to be a lot better at that than 90% of people on Twitter.
This is also true.
And probably a lot better at it than Sargon.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't think you have that skill to fall back on. So I don't really know what like where you would go from there. But I certainly wouldn't continue trying to have the argument.
Gotcha. Yeah, I probably should have just gone for more rhetorical tricks personally, because he doesn't really give that angle. Like, he always goes on about this gotcha moment, and they're basically looking for a gotcha moment about the whole lick conspiracy meme thing.
They don't get any gotcha moments though. Like when he's like, "Oh, haha, John Kelly just called me a cuck." Yeah, that's like kind of funny, I guess. And I don't understand why you're unironically calling people cucks. Also, that's a little fucking ridiculous. You're talking about like what an ethics cuck means to me.
Okay,
like that is iconic Gamergate Spurg Lord bullshit.
All right, for those who don't know what an ethics cuck means, and for those who just
it's fucking meaningless. It's something that people on fucking Gamergate HQ made up.
It doesn't matter. No, actually, it comes from was actually made by a guy called Ethics Sucks, and he defines it as someone who's basically pushing ethics ahead of other issues. So basically,
the word cuck, it's got like an etymology, right? And it means somebody who gets off on seeing his significant other having sex with someone else, or somebody whose significant other like passes off a child with someone else as theirs. That's what cuck means. So how does the word cuck relate to this concept of ethics cuck?
The best way I can describe at this moment is essentially someone just basically goes ahead and says, "Hey, we're doing this thing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to reform the industry, and we're going to kick out all these encroaching corporations that are trying to kill it, and all these people that are trying to censor free speech, etc., yada, yada." And someone's like, "No, we just need ethical standards in video games journalism. We need to ignore all these other issues." And then they're like, yeah, that'll be a great, worthy goal. And they'll watch their industry get fucked over as they agree to these terms. So
that's all nice and flowery, but when you say ethics cuck, people don't hear that long line of bullshit. They hear cummies and fuckboy and all the other stupid shit that retarded 11-year-olds say on 4chan.
Well, if they're just going to dismiss what I have to say simply because I use a term that they don't like, that's on them.
No, it's not that you used a term that they don't like. It's that you used a term that is patently unprofessional and has no place in the discussion.
I disagree with that. I say that when you're having discourse, you should be allowed to use any words you like.
When your 4chan trolls and your Twitter trolls and everybody use those kinds of words, they're just trying to piss people off. They're trying to annoy them.
Well, that's a means of getting people to think, actually, and that's something that I use that's something I use.
Well, it's a good way to get your opponent to stop thinking. You're giving them easy outs to identify you as a stupid 11-year-old who shitposts on 4chan.
That's their problem, not mine.
No, it is your problem, because that's what that word means. When you say ethics cuck and shit, like that was created by trolls lampooning Gamergate.
No,
and
it wasn't.
Now you're using it unironically.
But it wasn't created by trolls.
It really kind of was. Like maybe somebody else said it first, but that's not who popularized it. Like when I go on Twitter and I call people cucks and you favorite it and you retweet it, you know exactly what I'm doing, right?
I just find it funny. It's I know what you're doing there. You're basically making fun of the term. Like you had that cuck of the chicken thing. I thought
that was hilarious. It's really funny. Yeah, and it's funny because all of these people with Asperger's or whatever the fuck Gamergate's problem is keep using it for real. So when I say it, there's like this dichotomy there. You know, I've got like the Nazi hat on the avatar and shit, and I say a whole bunch of crazy funny stuff. So when I say it, it's ironic. The conflict between the image that the words present and the image that my actions and interactions present. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's not funny when you do it because it's serious.
Well, it's not supposed to be funny. It's basically supposed to make the other person cringe and basically make them wake up to the fact that they're doing stupid stuff.
Well,
and
it makes them cringe, but it makes them cringe on your behalf. Like, have you ever watched Bob Saget on TV?
Who on TV?
Bob Saget. He was the guy from Full House, that 80s sitcom, 90s sitcom. You don't remember Full House?
Full House?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
Young, aren't you? that's maybe before your time.
No. I'm familiar. It's just I forgot the name for the moment. Like Bob Saget, Full House, the guy with the kids and stuff like that. I get it.
Yeah. So like when you watch a sitcom like that, the feeling that he evokes is like a feeling of being embarrassed on their behalf. Or like when Kramer does something really ridiculous in Seinfeld, you get that feeling of being embarrassed for him. That's the feeling that you cause in other people when you use ethics cuck.
Oh, well,
It's
that's
not the feeling that you think you're causing, it's something else.
Well, I really don't care how they feel. I really don't. If they get offended, tough shit.
Well, it's
What
like using the wrong tool for the job. Like if you go into a duel with like a thief and you're using an axe and the thief is using a weapon that's superior to an axe, like maybe he's got nunchucks or something and nunchucks are better than axes, you shouldn't be using your axe. You shouldn't be using the ethics cuck. You should find a different tool for the job.
Well, you may have noticed in that particular stream, I maybe used the term ethics. Oh, I used that term in regards to Robin Gething. And as far as I'm concerned with that guy, he's a piece of shit. So I'm not going to bother respecting him.
Well, we've been over that too, and I still disagree with your appraisal of the situation.
Well, you can disagree, but you'd be wrong because you didn't properly assess the situation at all. And I'm pretty sure. Well, here's the thing with that.
I have a full view of exactly everything that happened.
Okay, here's the thing that I got wrong with that particular stream, right? Because, you know, that infamous stream where I basically spurred out and stuff like that. The first thing I got wrong was, you know, not just leaving. Obviously, me and him have a huge personality conflict. And the best thing
I don't think that was a mistake. I mean, you should be able to talk to anybody, right?
Well, if you're going to spurg out, would you rather spurg out or just, you know, leave?
Personally, I spurg out. I've had a couple moments.
That is true. I think we all have had our moments.
Freaked out at Thidrin a couple times.
Yes, you did. But in that particular case, all right, fine. Then let's just say then let's just ignore that one. The mistakes I made was basically I had a few suspicions about things that I thought were conclusive, but I was wrong about that. I should have saved until I did the necessary research into them. That being said, though, there was
remember when you argue with these people like that, they'll try to make you use those points. They'll try to catch you unawares and make you say something that's not fully chewed yet.
Mm-hmm. That is a mistake I made. And I fully own up to the fact that I made that mistake. Like, if you're gonna, you know, if you're gonna say something like that, just make sure it's conclusive. Otherwise, you actually do lose your credibility like that. And I had to apologize for that one. And people bring it up are just basically trying to raise an issue that's no longer an issue because nobody's really going after those leads. But the one thing that I did get, the problem with this, the point that I got right, was that basically Mr. Gething endorsed a deal. Endorsed a narrative, right? He verified this video in which STS was claimed to have been assaulted. He wasn't assaulted in that video at all.
That's true.
Yes, and he basically doubled down and still defended it, even though it was conclusively proven he wasn't assaulted.
That's true.
And Gething has a financial interest in Steve Tom Sawyer's interests, and that was the problem with that. That was the argument I should have went with. Instead, it was more of a guilt by association style.
I disagree that Gething had a significant financial interest.
He did, and I have proof he did because I have the tweets where he's basically where Steve Tom Sawyer is saying, "Hey, you donate to this, it's donating to Carbon Based Radio. It's basically a twofer."
Yes, I know that they had entwined financial relationships, but at the time that this happened, I do not believe that those relationships were substantial. I think Carbon Based Radio was already done.
No, that's not true. Carbon Based Radio was not done at that time at all.
I disagree. I don't think that it would have been successful anymore.
Carbon Based Radio finished off in around November to December, I believe. No, December, definitely December finished up. So that is not true at all. So yeah, he did fuck up. It's not just a little bit; it's a big fuck up. And the fact that
it's a big fuck up, though. How much money are we talking about here?
Doesn't matter. The fact that he's lying through his teeth.
So these are my understandings. One understanding is that Carbon Based Radio was funded on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or an equivalent platform. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did they continue to take donations after the Kickstarter or Indiegogo was complete?
Negative, but they were taking PayPal donations.
Okay. So during this time, I did not personally see Gething go out of his way, particularly to shill this thing or to ask for money.
He was on his stream shilling for this. He actually asked for.
It's a stream, though. We were talking about starting a radio show ourselves, too.
That's not the issue. The issue is he spun a narrative to get money. He
I don't
lied.
think that he was trying to get money for himself when he was lying on behalf of.
A lie's a lie. You don't.
What is that guy's name? Steve Tom Sawyer.
Yes, you don't ask for money under false pretenses.
Well, a lie is a lie. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that it wasn't wrong to back Steve Tom Sawyer, because it was wrong. It
Yeah.
was wrong in that it was how would I put this? It was improper for him to be foisting his users off on this person, to expose them to this person that I thought was just a con artist, basically. I thought that it was financially irresponsible of him to be directing his viewers to this person. And
Yep.
I think that the appropriate response to that is to tell him that he's being irresponsible, demand that he corrects the behavior, and then you're done, right?
That's what should have happened, but he doubled down and he kept on defending it. And he's still been doing things like setting up a Patreon for a channel like this, which there's no reason to ask for Patreon donations.
Well, once it came out and we all knew, then he realized he'd been a douchebag.
Not real.
His
No.
credibility was hurt.
No. Well, yeah, his credibility was purged, but then
I mean, he apologized like twice on 2 separate streams of mine, fairly earnestly, and told us exactly what he thought was wrong with Steve Tom Sawyer.
Okay, he could apologize, but I'm not going to trust him, and I'm definitely not going to go looking up to him for ethical concerns.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, he's not some kind of monster.
He's been spinning lots of narratives around. You may have noticed that he almost did the Freudian slip and dropped the bad pandas thing in that stream. Almost
doesn't count. And no, I didn't notice. Was he even in that stream?
Like in the last stream? No, I'm talking about the stream we were talking about with Gething. Like if you want to talk about
I
the
barely
stream,
even remember
that. Yeah, but the thing with this, like, the thing is that I don't get is why would you ever use that guy as like as a spokesperson for ethics after an incident like that? That's like a big no-no. It's like we need ethics in games journalism, but what this guy does over here with a games journalist is perfectly okay. That's
And again, the ethics in game journalism thing is a tool to get the people who are doing shit that we don't like out of games journalism.
true, but to those people who actually believe in ethical standards, that's a problem.
Well, no,
really kills
we
your
believe
message.
in ethical standards, though. That's not like a cause that you go out and you wage war for.
True.
Like
I guess
a hobby.
correct. You are partly correct, but you're partly correct. But the other part of this aspect is you can't, if you're going to use this as a tool, you can't go ahead and say that, oh, well, these actions can be excused, can be brushed aside. If you're going to say, well, this is unethical, but then that can be brushed on the rug. No, it doesn't work like that.
Am I having microphone issues? Is it catching popping and stuff?
No. At least not.
Somebody said, "Cover your damn mouth, Satan."
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, that's Rami. Actually, I don't know whether she's trolling or not. She does troll from time to time.
Well, yeah. If there's any problem with my microphone or I'm doing something wrong, let me know. It's been forever since I've done any of these streams, and I just set all my equipment up in the living room on the floor because it was all packed away and shit.
I actually have some people commenting in the chat that I should have gone harder on Sargon. And to be perfectly honest, I probably should, but...
Well, you didn't have any material. Give me a specific thing that Sargon did to piss you off that you could nail him on.
His anti-consumer practices and the lies he's been spinning in order to push those anti-consumer practices to get around his own responsibility.
Give me an example of one lie that he used to do this.
Okay, he claims that he didn't get any coverage. He did get coverage. He claims he misspoke, but I have a reason to believe that.
He claims he didn't get any coverage in regards to what?
Game coverage for Necromancer.
For Crypt of the Necromancer?
No, Necromancer.
What's his name?
No. Sargon. Okay, you're not up to date, are you?
I don't really give a shit about Sargon's supposed game development career. I don't think that he ever actually made any games.
Well, why is it okay for someone who's selling vaporware to basically continue to sell vaporware is the question.
Is he selling it? Where is he selling his game?
He had sold it, but he never delivered the game.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Where is, is there any information about this? Where can I find out about him selling a video game?
There's two sources. There's Veril's article on it, which has gotten a lot of heat and controversy because I think the reason why people don't like Verilo is you criticize me for not caring.
No, I don't care about Verilo. I'm looking for an actual first first degree source, like a from the horse's mouth of Sargon selling a video game. There should be some sort of store page or
right,
Kickstarter campaign or something.
Let me get the Necromancer campaign.
Cool.
There you go.
Oh shit! How do I?
And also get you the.
All right, we got Kickstarter.com/project/ a bunch of numbers /Necromancer. I think you can probably find it if you search for Necromancer Other Worlds Kickstarter.
Hold on, one thing I want to address. Rami, the problem with your argument is that he delayed the game a year and a half after announced release date, not development cycle. So that argument can be completely discarded.
So we got a campaign. It started in when? I don't see when it started. It got £8,000 in Swindon, UK. So it looks like he had more. It was more than just him. This isn't a one-person game.
Okay, it appears Mundane Matt and Sargon have actually in the chat. If they'd like to come on, they're more than welcome to come on. I don't get.
Yeah, we can toss you guys the join link.
Yeah,
if you
like
want.
I'm not gonna like if you guys are listening, I'm not gonna just talk smack about you and not give you the right.
Although actually, Mundane Matt, if you're gonna join up, then we want to stay away from the ad hominems and shit. We're trying to understand the other parties' opinions and the reasons that they think the way they do. We're not going for dunks and points here. We'll go for dunks and points if somebody says something really incredibly stupid. Or like starts acting like a total spurg. But I'll like announce it when we do that. But yeah, send them join links. I used to talk with Mundane Matt once in a while, like last year. He's kind of cool.
Monday Matt is all right. Like I've got a few issues with him, but overall, like a lot of people give Monday Matt a lot of shit, but he's not like how do I put this? The things that have him like there are some disagreements with Monday Matt I have, but overall, like
he kind of does the same thing that you do. He gets like an idea about something that somebody said that sounded like kind of offensive, I think, and then he like sticks on it for a little while. He doesn't do it as badly as you do, though. What have you made quite clear, Sargon? I really like to talk to you about this shit because I don't really like a lot of the stuff that you've been doing either. There was a particular argument once that we had in Twitter that kind of annoyed me. I wouldn't mind going over. I'd have to search for the specifics because I forgot what it was about.
Right.
It really kind of annoys me that the Sargon fans all feel the need to like jump in and get their 2 cents in and tell everybody what they think about it when they're all just saying the same thing and they obviously haven't like thought about it at all. Look at all. They're just repeating some talking point.
Yeah, that's the problem I'm seeing with a lot of these arguments. It's like, oh, well, this thing, that thing, and that thing.
But
like,
you do the same thing.
Well, where exactly am I failing in that?
That's why we were digging into the Sargon thing. So
gotcha.
If you guys missed that in chat, we were talking about Kelly's issue with Sargon, and basically he said a bunch of stuff, and then I drilled it down to there was some sort of problem with the Kickstarter that Sargon ran like a couple years ago. So now we're looking into the Kickstarter to find out if that particular issue is worth being a little annoyed about. Is this game actually released? Is this out? Because I've made a couple of little games myself, and this looks kind of difficult.
Well, that's the issue that we're really having here. It's like the issue, like the problem for me, why this is a concern for me, as I explained the other stream, is Sargon's doing consumer advocacy stuff, right? He's like telling people that journalists need to be held to ethical standards, and then you have this game that's vaporware that's been released. Like it's
but he's not like selling it right now.
True, but he already raked in the money for it, and
what do you mean raked in? We're talking £8,000.
Well, yes, but it's still an issue. It's kind of like this is the problem I'm having with a lot of crowdfunding things. The standards that we're basically signing on board for is essentially standards that we're signing on board for that I'm seeing is they're not pro-consumer. That's the issue I'm having. And I think that people are just like tap dancing around the issue. Well, like it's okay if we do this, that, and the other thing.
Well, I mean, you're seeing people who have firsthand experience working with things like Kickstarter and taking money and spending it potentially wrong, and having a small development team and having difficulty producing a game, obviously, I mean, I'm not saying that they're necessarily the best source of information, but they sound like a pretty good source of information on the Kickstarter and pre-order fiasco to me. Like, this is somebody who has firsthand experience as a developer trying to use these platforms.
You mean Sargon himself?
Well, yeah.
Well,
so if Sargon tells me, hey, I made a game, it did actually go long, I ran into a lot of problems, I know what the problems with Kickstarter are, I think maybe you shouldn't back this one. You know, that sounds pretty compelling. Just saying.
Well, okay, one thing I want to point out, Old School, why are you so retarded? I mean, like, I'm not even going to be nice about this guy, because this guy got on my case because I was arguing on Twitters with Gaming and Pandas, and
he's confrontational. That's his thing.
Yeah, but it's just so annoying that he's like, oh, that has nothing to do with ethics, John. Get out of here.
Sargon of Akkad is not a real person, John. Sargon of Akkad is a personality on the internet that is fake. It's not the way this person acts in real life.
No, I wasn't talking about Sargon in that instance. Clarification, I wasn't talking about Sargon in that instance. I was talking about Beardmosexual. He was basically just ranting about me, and I have no idea why.
Oh, I don't
if
even
he wants
know
to come on and talk with me, that's fine. Yeah. If he wants to come on and rant to my face, that's fine. But like,
but even him though, I bet that's not the way he acts. Like, really, that's not a real person that you're pissed off about. It's a fake person on the internet.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that. How are you doing, Sargon?
Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Sargon, what's up?
Hey,
we were just talking about some things. Satan
John,
wanted to talk.
John, right? I've never sold a game, John. Okay, so to say that is just factually inaccurate.
Well, you were part of the dev team for Necromancer, right?
Yeah, and I still am.
So you did get, you know, 8,000 pounds or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the game is still in development.
That's kind of bad, right? When was this? The estimated delivery was May 2014. You guys almost done, or what? What's going on?
No, very almost done. You can look at my gaming channel where I've got 3 or 4 development streams.
So I see. I thought that this thing was like stagnated and you weren't working on it anymore.
No, I'm still working on it. The problem, I said in the stream earlier, the problem is that if it was just like before Gamergate, when no one was paying attention, I'd probably been like, it's not the best game I think I could produce, but I'll just release it just to get it done with. But now I've got so many people paying attention that I'm second guessing myself constantly, and I'm just kind of like, no, I think, you know, it's gone past the like, oh, you know, the technical production of a game, and now it's got to the sort of stage where it's like, is this artistically good enough? Yeah. You know, I don't feel that it's a good enough game yet, and so honestly, the delay is actually me like wanting to produce a better game, because.
What role do you take in the dev team?
Oh, I'm the programmer.
Oh, cool. What are you using?
Unity 3D. Just upgraded to Unity 5.
Ah, what IDE?
Sorry, say again.
What IDE are you working in?
IDE?
Yeah, interactive development environment. You using like code blocks, or you just Vimming it, or what?
Oh, just using JavaScript in Unity.
Oh, it's JavaScript?
Yeah. You don't. You know what? Everyone like, oh, you should use C#. I was like, well, maybe, but I'm not producing like some giant MMO. So, you know, the technical requirements aren't quite...
JavaScript, huh?
I suppose
wow, I get to look into this shit. I have no idea how you guys are... Like, the last time that I was looking at indie games and making a game and shit, we were using, like, a C front end. Like, it was called Earlicht, I think. Mm-hmm. And we used, what was it? Whatever rendering engine Mozilla Firefox used to use. And shit like that. I mean, we were using raw OpenGL calls.
Yeah, but yeah, no, the Unity it's the 3D engine, so it does all that for you. And the initial, there's like a free version that you can use, but part of the Kickstarter money went on buying the pro version. You know, so you got things like real-time shadows, occlusion culling, and a bunch of other things that are really, really awesome.
Ah, so you actually had to buy dev tools and stuff for real.
Oh yeah, of course. And that's the thing. I mean. You know, £8,000, I guess, sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You know, I mean, hardly any of it actually went on, like, dev tools and stuff. Like, probably, like, I don't know, 10-20% went on that. Most of it went on the contracts we had with the artists to produce the models for the game.
All right.
Assets for the game, you know. But, I mean, it's all been bought and paid for.
Let's get back on the topic.
In budget, so I'm not worried about any of that.
John Kelly is trying to convince me of one of the problems that he has with you. So... I'll try to like ask him questions and stuff and try not to get
Go ahead,
offended.
John. No, go ahead.
Cool. All right, Kelly. So we're looking at the Kickstarter, and we got, it was pledged £8,000. It looks like the £8,000 was spent on stuff like dev tools, and it's very late, but
Right. Very late.
for
That's the issue.
some understandable reasons.
No, I don't agree that they're understandable reasons. This is the problem I have. I'd say that if you're going to have a game, you announce that it's released at a certain date and you charge money for it. That's the key thing here. So you're asking the public for
I
money
haven't
for it.
charged any money for it, John.
Well, there was the £8,000. So somebody in the chat before,
That's
in
willing
the
donations.
last stream that we were in, said Kickstarter is not a pre-order platform.
No.
And I actually vehemently disagree that Kickstarter is not a pre-order platform. I believe that when people, now not what it says on the tin, but what people believe when they donate their money. I believe that when people donate their money to a Kickstarter for a video game, they expect to get their video game for the amount of money that they put into the Kickstarter.
Now,
They're making a transaction.
I would completely agree with you, but we do have a bit of a mitigating circumstance that the only reason the Kickstarter was successful is because my friends and family paid for it.
I gotcha.
So basically, I know all of our backers, and
The
they
problem-
play video games.
Well, the thing that's the thing that really bugs me about all this is that when you say it's from all your friends and family, it still beggars the question of why you would. It just doesn't make any. To me, it doesn't make any sense. It kind of made sense based on the reasoning, but it would still be at the end of the day a very poor business move. And
Well, hang on a sec. What's the problem with him running a Kickstarter off of donations from friends and family?
the issue is that you're using a public platform and a vector to attract donations when you already have the donations necessary from your friends and family. So basically,
But there's good reasons for that. You can generate additional buzz and get more people who are interested in your game by using Kickstarter because your stuff appears with like free advertisement and stuff.
That's the idea, I guess, that Sargon's trying to push, but I don't.
No,
I've
John,
never...
I'm not trying to push it. That's the reason we did it.
Okay, that's the reason That's the reason that you're stating, but it's not a convincing argument to me because why would there be a?
So
Well, that's what
you're saying
Kickstarter
I'm
is
lying,
for. Anybody could go out on the street corner and beg for change to make a video game with. But Kickstarter is the new exciting thing.
Yeah, but John, and like I said in the other stream earlier on today, if you're working at a magazine and two people come to you saying, "Hey, would you cover my indie games?" and one of them has a successful Kickstarter and one of them doesn't, which one are you more likely to cover?
If one has a successful Kickstarter, one doesn't. I would honestly, from my vantage point, I'd look at what is actually going to go. I would actually, from a consumer advocacy point, I'd look into the one that has a Kickstarter simply because I want to keep people's aware of the public aware of this
So
how
there we
Kickstarter
go.
works.
I'd be more likely to get coverage for having.
And
a
this is
successful
back
Kickstarter.
when the only way to get your indie game in the news at all, and this is pre-Gamergate when you started this, was
no
to
one
be
cared
successful
either.
on Kickstarter.
That was the thing. No one cared. I mean, we should have been like, yeah, no, it's full of transgenders and stuff, and then we would have got loads of coverage, man. But seriously, nobody gave a shit. Nobody would, and when I say nobody, I mean like nobody with significant amount of readership.
I would say you got far more
like-
coverage than your
John.
average indie game on that basis. I think that you're not looking at
John,
this
you're not an indie developer. You don't know what you talk about, mate. All right, you don't know what you're talking about. So please stop.
The
I've
only
had
reason
people
that I
come
heard
to
of
me
it
and
was
tell me
that
that-
he was in Gamergate.
Right, but
So-
I've heard people come to me. People have come to me and told me that, in essence, people have. You've gotten far more coverage than a lot of other bigger games, than other indie games in your market have been. Like,
Yeah, okay,
a
John,
lot
but
more.
this isn't a Marxist outcomes or the thing we're aiming for. You do what you can. You're competing with other people.
Well, the question is the accuracy of the statement, and considering that it was
Accuracy
better
of your statement? I'm sorry.
the accuracy of the statement that he had no coverage. And keep in mind, he said this 5 times on the stream. I made sure of it. I
John,
even wrote his transcript just to make sure.
Oh, hang on a sec. Let's validate this statement. Sargon, you have been complaining that you do not get significant coverage for your video game?
That was exactly right. So I had said as just a shorthand, off-the-cuff statement that we got no coverage. And
No,
when I
what?
say no coverage, I mean no significant coverage. No one.
Okay, so you got no significant coverage. Where were you expecting to get coverage from?
Well, we applied to all the big game sites. And again, this is all pre-Gamergate.
We're talking like Escapist and
Yeah,
IGN.
Kotaku, Rock Paper Shotgun, all the big ones, you know.
Mhm.
And none of them even replied to any of our emails. None. The only one that did was Good Old Games, and they said maybe when it looks nicer, and we couldn't do that until after the Kickstarter.
Now that could be because it was very early in development,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Did you have
without
this
a
stuff
doubt.
to show off?
Without a doubt, I'm not saying that the only reason was because they were simply only interested in certain things. That's just me being cynical. I don't know what their reasons were. Their reasons be any number of things. But the point is, the outlets that we got coverage from were tiny outlets who covered tiny indie games that no one else would cover.
Okay.
So,
That sounds legit to me. Your game doesn't seem like it's the bee's knees exactly. It's
No,
like a
it's
niche
probably not.
title that people who are interested in game development might want to check out.
Well, it doesn't. Well, the question for me is whether or not the statement was accurate, because again, it goes into the kind of
John,
narrative pushing that.
yeah, but your standards are just autistic, mate. Okay,
This is what I was talking about before.
This is
Now,
the
in
problem,
response to
right?
John Kelly saying that it is not an accurate statement for you to say that you got no coverage, I would say that it could easily be an accurate statement that you got no coverage. If I was saying, if I was Sargon of Akkad and I'm saying I got no coverage, I could be talking about this from the point of view of me at the end of 2014, back when my game had, indeed, gotten no coverage.
Would
We
you
could
like
be
me to read off
talking
the
about
transcript?
gotten no coverage during a certain period of time, even.
Would you
Right?
like me to read off the
I've stressed this. When I say no coverage, I'm being relative. No significant coverage.
Okay, then why?
Nowhere
Okay, but
impressive has given
Okay.
us any kind of review or anything like that. All of the places that had done anything, nobody's ever heard of because they're tiny, or they were tiny at the time.
okay, well, I actually did bother to take the time to write a transcript of this because because the response I actually got was like
John, right?
Can you link me to the
I'll do you a
transcript so
favor.
I
I'll
can
do you
read
a
it?
favor, John.
John, it's right there.
You can just call me a liar, mate. Just call me a liar. I'm
Well,
fucking
I actually
sick.
did call you a
No,
liar.
no, John, John, just do it. I'm sick of arguing this pathetic point with you.
Well, you did lie.
No, John, I've already
Hang
done
on,
two
guys.
hours.
You're
I've already done
Sargon.
2 hours,
You've gone
and
off
now
into
I'm back
left field.
here arguing this anal fucking point.
This is my problem that I have with you, Sargon. Rather than debating somebody who's obviously wrong, you kind of freak out a little bit.
No, mate,
Yes,
I've done this
I
for
believe
2
that
hours
John
already.
Kelly
I
is
have done
wrong,
this
but you're
for
freaking
2
out and
hours
calling
already.
him names.
I have done
See,
this for
actually,
2
I have to
hours
correct
already,
you there.
mate.
I know that you have, but you've done it poorly and with a stream host who didn't know what the fuck he was doing and didn't even
I
bother
disagree, I did it
trying to
poorly.
moderate the conversation. It was not effective.
Yeah, that's because John Kelly is a brick wall.
Now, no, actually, it's because John Kelly makes accusations and then you get offended and call him names. That is
No, that's not
equally
true.
childish
That's
to the
not
way
true.
that he's
I have
making the
directly
accusations in the
refuted
first
that.
place.
I wouldn't
On
say there's
every
accusations being
I
made
have
here.
directly refuted every accusation. And then again, I
No,
directly
actually, you
refuted.
did not
And then
directly
I've just
refute
got
the
to the point where I'm just
accusation
frustrated.
that you had not indeed gotten coverage.
I've done that
You
3 times
immediately
already.
called him an Asperger.
I have done that already, repeatedly tonight.
Well, okay, but I haven't heard it. Why would I listen to you guys in a stream hollering at each other for hours?
I've literally just gone over it again, and then it's got to the point where I'm just like, John, just
Well, we
call me
got to
liar.
a new point, and then you stopped and started freaking out.
No, I'm not freaking out. I'm pissed off.
Well,
Right?
okay,
Have
good for the
I
goose,
not,
good for
have
the
I
gander.
not turned around and said, look, right, when I said we got no coverage, I meant significant coverage from any kind of news outlet that you...
Okay, yeah, we're past that. You said no significant coverage. And now John Kelly still disagrees and would like me to read the
Yeah,
transcript.
that's fine.
So
I'm just
we
gonna
will.
make the point.
And the transcript goes as follows. Sargon says, I wish we got this kind of coverage from the games. This is one of the reasons I care so much about Gamergate. Because we went to Kotaku and Polygon and all of the other things, and I've got a couple of other friends from a couple of the indie dev groups who've said exactly the same thing. And they've said literally, no one will cover us. And then blah, 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 blah. I would love to have had that in an article in Polygon or something. That makes sense to me. What's the problem that you actually have with this transcript, Kelly?
So,
Do you have
so
a
my-
particular
my
section?
headphones cut out there. I didn't hear any of that. Sorry.
Okay, the problem I have with it is in the bold quotes he specifically says repeatedly, not like offhand, not offhandedly, not oh well this no I didn't get any coverage. He
So
says
in the
it
first one, he
multiple
said that he wished he got more significant coverage. He says he wants this kind of coverage specifically. So coverage relating to something that was talked about previously in the stream. Then in the second bold group, he says that he has other friends who said nobody will cover them. Then in the third one, he said that he would love to have had an article in Polygon. And in the fourth one, he said, we couldn't get any coverage. Now, for the first one, obviously, he's making a comparison to something else. In the second one, obviously, he's saying that his friends said that no one would cover them. In the third one, he wishes that he had an article on Polygon, and he obviously did not have an article on Polygon. In the fourth one, he says we couldn't get any coverage. And again, this is what we were saying earlier. When you say we couldn't get any coverage, you could be talking about couldn't meaning a time period in the past. You could be meaning the past and all of the past from a certain point in the past. Or you could be talking about the entire past from now. And that's still not an inaccurate statement. And because of the ambiguity
I would
of
actually
the
say it's
statement,
highly inaccurate, and you trying to spin it that way actually is
no, the statement is ambiguous. Therefore, you shouldn't be immediately applying malice to Sargon
okay. So let me
for
challenge you on
making
that.
it.
Let me challenge you on that. Earlier in this conversation, you said to Sargon that he's being way too dismissive of what I said, and that was equally childish because I am in fact wrong. Isn't that basically making an assertion without actually properly applying dialectics?
Well, I'm backing up my statement now.
Well, okay, yes, but I have a problem with the semantical kind of argumentation that you're trying to deliver. The problem
I'm not like a computer, though. I can't get an entire SD card's worth of information without serializing it. I have to put my thoughts in order and speak them one at a time to you because that's how conversation works. I can't give you the whole picture in one word, you know? There's a chronological order of events here that have to be followed.
Okay. The problem is, though, he did say 5 different times on that stream that he got no coverage. Now, for there is some coverage that I'll give him pass for.
Now we're talking. So when you say I got no coverage, it's understood at this point that it's a slight exaggeration, and that the word no significant coverage, significant is being omitted here. And that's just the way the English language works. You can do that. It's okay. Right, Sargon?
I've conceded. Let John have this point. I don't care about this.
Well, this is the only thing that I care about. I care about John is...
If it makes me some terrible person...
That doesn't make you a terrible person.
I think people really take this way too far when people make failings.
Yeah, but John, we've been over this for 2 fucking hours already, mate. 2 hours. And you're going on about the same fucking point.
Well, you're also going on about the same point.
Yeah, but
you're going on about him going on, and you're not actually listening anymore.
He's already lied about me on the stream, and I have already...
Lied? Okay, where did I lie? If I did lie,
you lied. John, shut up, right? You lied directly by saying I sold a video game. That was you lying.
No.
Do you understand?
You did sell a video game.
No, I have never sold a video game.
Hang on. You earlier admitted that you do believe that most people who back Kickstarter projects believe that they're buying a video game when they back the Kickstarter project.
I don't agree with that at all.
Oh.
I didn't say that.
Okay, so you disagree that most people do believe that they're engaging in a transaction to receive a video game and to give money when they back a video game Kickstarter.
Yeah, but that's because the video game Kickstarter producers, whoever it is, put as generally the lowest entry to the Kickstarter backing a copy of the game. That's the only reason they expect to get a copy of the game is because it's guaranteed.
Now, if I see this correctly, it looks like your lowest pledge reward for £5 UK is a copy of the game.
That's correct.
We just going to let that one hang in the air?
I'm not. I'll actually answer that. I think that is actually selling the game. Also, old school, if you're going to keep on accusing me of crying, maybe you should basically look in a mirror.
This is, again, another ad hominem kind of thing. This is trying to piss the guy off, and every time you try to piss him off, he's not going to respond to your argument. You're just going to put him in another mental state where he just wants to attack you. That's not worthwhile. Can you... I don't think that we're actually going to succeed here.
Well, I think the issue is that, like, I think the problem to me is if Sargon would just address this, had addressed this in good faith in the first place with Verilo.
Well, that's tone policing, right? He can address it in as bad faith as he wants.
Then I don't get your standards. Then they're really contradictory. You're like,
yes,
we actually went on stream to talk.
I can only barely hear you, Sargon. It's like your audio is way down low.
Sorry, I've got these crappy headphones and they keep cutting out like halfway through. So sorry,
It's all good.
I don't know what I can do, man. To be honest. But yeah, so what was the last thing you heard of what I was saying? Sorry.
So the last thing that I heard that you said was that you think that the reason that most people believe that they're engaging in a monetary transaction to give money and receive a game when backing a Kickstarter is because usually the lowest priced Kickstarter rewards are copies of the games.
Yeah, I mean, if the lowest reward backing was, say, $1 or £1, and it didn't say you will get a copy of the game, it would just say you get a fucking email thanking you, then you won't get a copy of the game, and you're not entitled to one.
But your Kickstarter does indeed have as its lowest priced pledge reward a copy of the game.
Yeah, but that's not a purchase.
That's an awfully semantical argument you're making there.
John,
I don't think that there is a semantical argument there, actually.
You've got no place to talk about semantic arguments, really, have you?
Wait,
well, no. There's no semantic argument there. That was just an agreement. So,
well, no, that's true. I mean, literally, it's not a sale.
So you have 27 copies of this game that you pre-sold on Kickstarter.
No, I can't pre-sell on Kickstarter. No one can pre-sell. Oh, fuck's sake, is my...
No, I do hear you.
Oh, right, okay.
So the reason that most people believe that Kickstarters are monetary transactions are because the lowest price Kickstarter reward is a copy of the game. True?
Yes.
And you have as your lowest Kickstarter reward a copy of the game.
Yes.
Yet your backers it's impossible for them to believe that they're purchasing a copy of the game when they back your game.
It doesn't matter whether
What makes your game different?
No, it doesn't matter whether they believe that or not, because it's not them purchasing a copy of the game.
Ah, okay, hang on. It doesn't matter if they believe it or not. Therefore, you don't care whether the consumer is informed or not when backing your game on Kickstarter.
No, I've never said that. I didn't say that. What I'm saying.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what your point is.
But my point is that when John says, I have sold a game...
It looks to me like you've sold 27 copies of your £5 pledge.
I've never sold a game.
Well, I mean, you haven't produced any games to actually sell, so I suppose the transaction is not yet complete.
It's not a transaction. That's the thing. I know.
So you're telling me that none of your 27 backers for your £5 pledge believed that they were buying a game?
It doesn't matter what they believe, because, I mean, you can believe all kinds of crazy nonsense.
I find that a little bit odious. That stance doesn't sit well with me.
Okay, but this is the law. Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform.
I thought we were talking about, like, ethics and being ethical, though, not what the law is.
I think staying within the rules of the law is ethical.
That's not ethical, because by that logic...
Yeah, John...
Okay,
that means that nothing that Zoe Quinn did was unethical.
And nothing that James Post did was unethical either, by that logic.
Hang on. Right. Let me just explain to you what is happening here, because I can see you guys don't really understand what's going on, right? You are not ever buying anything on Kickstarter. You are donating to a crowdfunding campaign.
No, I've had this argument. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off right there because I've had this argument like 1,000
times. I don't care, John. Then you must have been wrong. Okay.
Yeah, just hold on. Let him get this across.
All right, I overstepped my bounds.
I have read their terms and conditions. I know what I'm doing here. It's not a purchase.
Does that mean that it's not a
Don't-
purchase when I buy something off the EA Origin store, like Battlefield 4, because it says that it is not in their terms and conditions?
It's not. That's not crowdfunding.
Is that right?
That's not a
Got a
crowdfunding.
point there, actually.
Whoa, hang on a sec. Because
That's
it's not crowdfunding, it's different?
Yeah, actually.
But they're representing it to me as purchasing a game.
I don't care how they're representing it to you.
Wait,
I
what?
don't see what's that got to do with me?
So, alright, we've got three ideas here that don't mesh with one another. The first idea is that you have repeatedly admitted that people do believe that they are buying a game when they back a Kickstarter project when the lowest price reward is a copy of the game. You also said that it is not unethical or wrong in any way for you to do this on your Kickstarter because it's not because it says that that's not actually the case in the terms and conditions. And the third point that also conflicts is that you said there's nothing wrong with EA selling me copies of Battlefield 4 on Origins, even though I'm not actually buying a game, I'm just buying a license, because the terms and conditions say that I'm just buying a license. Now, I don't think that any of those three things would really sit well with the majority of the gaming population. Do you?
Sargon said that he's fixing his mic at the moment, so he may have not gotten all of that. But from my perspective, I actually fully
That's a
agree.
really convenient time for Sargon to need to fix his microphone.
I would say so. I would also say that I'd also agree with Satan here. He's on point. Like, just because you specifically say something's not a purchase doesn't mean that it's any less of an issue.
Well, you know, he's not going out of his way to say that it's not a purchase on the Kickstarter page.
No, he's not.
But it is in the terms and conditions for Kickstarter.
Right, it is, but it's still an expenditure of money, and that's a
Now,
problem.
you know, I still don't agree with you here, John Kelly.
Okay,
I don't think that he has done anything improprietous in his Kickstarter campaign. What I'm doing is just trying to nail down the point to find out what his opinion is. So I'm taking a contrarian stance.
Well, here's the problem that I have when you say that that you don't think that Sargon didn't do anything wrong. I don't see how you, in particular, who's I know pays attention to this industry stuff and does a lot of
Okay, you guys there?
yes.
Yeah.
Did you get what Satan said about the contradiction you made?
No. I just changed computers. Sorry, what was?
Okay.
So, you've said and confirmed that you think that the reason most people believe that Kickstarters are selling video games and making a monetary transaction from Kickstarter when you back the game is because people sell, rather, as their lowest Kickstarter reward, they have a copy of the game.
Yes.
You've also said that this isn't actually selling the game because it says in the Kickstarter terms and conditions that it's not, and that's fine.
Kickstarter is not a shop. They don't sell games.
Despite the fact that the majority of people who back Kickstarters do believe that they are a shop and are selling games.
Well, it doesn't matter what they believe. If it's not accurate, it's not accurate, is it?
I think that it does matter what they believe and that we should be working to correct their misperceptions so that we're not defrauding them of money, personally.
I don't think that it's... Okay.
I think that your stance is inconsistent, but I actually don't personally think that you've done anything wrong.
I would argue the opposite, and I'll let my case.
John, look,
Let me let my case. Okay.
go on, John.
John, nothing. Let me state the.
I just said a bunch of shit to Sargon, though, so he should really respond
Yeah,
first.
I would like to, but
Okay,
John
fine.
can't shut up for a second.
All right, I'll let Sargon go, and then I'll have a nice say.
Oh,
in that
thanks,
order.
John. That's so good of you.
Well, I am the host of the stream, so.
Yeah, but you're also the person who's
Hey,
just
hey, stop
been with
derailing me.
Stonewall all night. Yeah, what was the points again?
This is what happens when you derail me. I forget what we were saying. I've said this like 4 times now, and it's like really long.
Yeah.
So you didn't do
Sargon,
anything wrong with your Kickstarter, and it's not a conflict of opinion when you say that you're not selling games because it says in the Kickstarter terms and conditions that you're not selling games.
No, you are backing a project that obviously does not exist yet, and usually, but not always, usually One of the terms and conditions of that is that when the project is finished, the creator of the project will give you a copy or sell you it or send you it, whatever it is that they agree to in their backer pledges. But they don't have to have a pledge that says you get a copy of the thing. It's
That's
just
true.
just a very good incentive to do so.
By your own admission, I believe that you would concede that some of your backers, specifically those who backed some of the 27 copies of the £5 pledge, thought that they were making a monetary transaction to receive a game when they backed
None of my ones would have done.
None of them? Absolutely none of the 27?
Absolutely none.
Completely zero. They are all most definitely your friends and family.
Have a look at how many backers we have. In fact, I'll get it up so you can. 77 backers for £8,000. They are all friends and family, mate.
100%. Completely, for sure.
Well, if there are people on there who aren't friends and family, I'm not aware of it. And remember, I wasn't the only
Did you
person.
previously say that you knew every single backer there, so you didn't have you?
Oh, shut up, John! Shut up!
Well, it just contradicts yourself.
Shut up, John!
He's on point. You know every single backer?
No, I don't know every single backer because I was literally in the middle of explaining why I didn't.
Okay.
It's a 3-man team, or it was. Friends and family of all 3 people.
Oh.
Have you found a single person who's unhappy about it? Just out of interest.
That's not really my responsibility. I think that'd be your
Oh,
responsibility.
right, okay, John. So now everything up until now was your responsibility, but now it's not your responsibility.
I take
That's
responsibility
fine.
for a lot of things contrary to popular
Well,
belief.
hang on a sec, though.
Okay.
Hey, Sargon. I still don't understand why you think that it's not a problem that some people who back Kickstarter projects think that they're engaging in transactions.
It's not my problem, is it?
Yes, it is
Well,
actually.
How
Why
is it
are
my
you
problem,
so
John?
standoffish about it, though? It's not like I expect you to fix it.
Well,
We're just having a
why are you
conversation.
asking me? No, we're not, though, are we? We're
No,
talking
you and I
about
are.
No. We're talking about my personal Kickstarter. I spent 2 hours under accusation from an idiot, and now I'm facing more accusations because you guys don't understand legally how Kickstarter works.
No, I completely understand legally how Kickstarter works.
Just randomly talking
Where
about
did you get the idea that I don't know how Kickstarter works? Where'd
because
you
of the
pick that up?
conversation we're having. You thought people purchased games through Kickstarter.
No, they do purchase games over Kickstarter. That's what they believe that they're doing when
So
they
that doesn't
give
mean
their
that's what
money to
they're doing.
Kickstarter. What?
That doesn't mean that's what they're doing.
Well, that's what they believe that they're doing, and I think that that's a problem. I think that those people are being tricked.
I reckon fucking you should create some sort of
You
advertising
see
campaign.
absolutely no problem. No problem. Nothing is wrong when people believe that they're buying games off Kickstarters. They're engaging in pre-orders for all intents and purposes to them when they're actually just backing projects that are somewhat likely to fail. There's nothing wrong with this. You don't see that this is any problem.
How is that related to my game?
It's not related
Well, then
to
that's
your
fine.
game.
There we go. That's great. Why you bring it up then?
Because that's what we're talking about. Why
No,
are
we're not.
you
We're
all
talking
defensive?
about my game.
We're
I'm
no
here to
longer
defend
talking
myself.
about... You
Well, when did that
refuted...
happen?
Hey, you refuted the point. We can
Oh.
continue the conversation. Why are you
That's
pissed
great
at me?
Man, I'm pissed because I'm repeatedly answering the same damn questions.
Why
Yeah,
are you so
I
emotional, though?
Man, because I haven't slept in 24 hours.
That's
because
not my fault.
Oh.
Why don't you take a nap?
Did I say it's your fault?
Well,
Man,
you're yelling at me.
Yeah, because I'm just frustrated about answering the same kind of fucking questions, right?
Actually,
Okay,
you're
if
frustrated.
Hang on, right? If you want to create some kind of fucking, campaign, hey, did you know when you're backing a Kickstarter, you're not actually buying the game. It's entirely on faith. Do it, man. Fucking go for it. I'll retweet that shit. It's true. People probably don't understand it. But at the end of the day,
At the end of
the
the
way it
day, when
works.
somebody brings it up, when they're questioning you, you get mad.
because it's not relevant to the subject.
Oh, is that why you got mad? No, you got mad because you thought it was an accusation against your person.
Well, given that you literally introduced it without missing a beat, do you think that's an unfair assumption?
Well, I just wanted to see if it would piss you
No,
off.
answer the question. Do you think it's unfair that I should think that?
I do think it's unfair, yeah. Because
Well,
you're talking to the Gaten Satan, who's a big fucking troll.
There we
And the
go.
only purpose of me being here in this stream with you is to piss you off and
Come
to
on.
find out where your
You're
limits and
better
where
than
your buttons are.
Man, you know you're better than a fucking troll. You know you're better
I'm
than
way
a
better than any troll.
Man,
I'm the best.
I have been in streams with you where we've had disagreements and you've put forward your argument and I've been like, no, that's a good point. That's a good argument. I retract my point. You know,
In my
so
experience,
at the end of the day,
arguers
what's
are
the worst
actually
that happens?
trolls.
Oh, I got trolled. Big fucking deal.
I don't know. It's just like, okay, I think Satan's making some good points, but they're mostly what's the word for it?
What points do you think he's making?
I'm pointing out the reasons that you and John Kelly cannot have a civil conversation between the two of you.
We've had a long civil conversation, and John seems to be unable to accept that none of his points are correct.
That's also true.
Okay, well, this whole stream started because Satan had some criticism for my style of argumentation, and we wanted to discuss that. And
Yeah, I believe that when John Kelly was arguing with you in the
Okay.
previous chat, he had turned off his brain and was no longer trying to understand your point of view.
Okay.
Honestly, I think that I would agree with Satan that my argumentation was not up to snuff, but for different reasons. Honestly,
John,
I think I should have gone harder on you with that one.
No, it doesn't matter about your argumentation, right? Because
Okay.
the point that you were arguing was just incorrect. No matter how you were going to argue it, you were never going to be in the right.
Okay, here's the problem with that. Now, you keep on tap dancing around the issue about selling games, and keep on saying, no, it's not a sale, it's a donation.
I haven't tapped out around any issue.
You've tap danced around it a
I
lot.
thought it was a little bit of tap dancing. It was at least
Okay,
figure
go
skating.
on then. If the troll's on your side as well, go on.
Okay, point I'm making is you're basically going around the whole problem, across the problem. Whether you want to call it donation, if you want to erroneously call it an investment.
No. Let's stick to legal terminology, shall we, John?
I'm not making a legal argument.
John, no. Then we know that we're in the right. Then we know what we're saying is correct.
The question is,
And
The law
John,
is not the
I mean,
be-all and end-all of what is
objectively,
good and right,
technically-
though.
Hey, I'm not debating what's good and right.
I thought you just did, though. You brought that up.
No,
You said the law, and if we stay within the law, then we're good and right.
No, then we are objectively correct.
what?
I can
Wait a
also
minute,
disagree
what?
with you there, because we're not talking in the domain of exclusively the law. We're also talking about, should things change? Are things okay the way that they are?
I do agree
Yep,
with that.
that's a good
Because
question.
A lot of people do think that, this. I mean, a lot of people, especially like big Kickstarter, man, where you're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds and stuff. I know there are a lot of people who don't get the fucking get their
Star
games and stuff
Citizen?
like
Oh my god, that's going to be a nightmare when that explodes.
that. Man, can you imagine? Can you fucking imagine? You know what I mean? And
But
so,
we're only seeing the sparks at the moment. When that thing goes
Right.
critical, it's going to pop.
All right, let me
I-
make myself clear to tell you where I'm coming from, because I've been trying to get a point in, and
sorry, yeah, go on.
Okay, where I'm coming from is, yes, we all agree here that Kickstarter is a horrible system. Well, I'm not sure if Sargon agrees with that.
No, I don't think it's a horrible system.
It's not horrible.
It-
It's better than PayPal was in 2001.
Yeah.
Does Kickstarter go through PayPal?
They can, I think.
I imagine, yeah, you probably can. I can't remember.
I've
That
given
is
them my
what- that
credit
is
card
actually
directly
something.
once.
That is actually something I should look into, because just take a look at the.
Well, you shouldn't deal with PayPal for that stuff. I mean, even Patreon isn't as bad as PayPal.
Oh, Patreon. No,
If
no,
you
no,
have
no.
a choice,
That's where
use
you're dead
Patreon
wrong.
directly.
No, Satan, you are dead wrong on that. The reason why
No,
you're dead
I'm
wrong.
not. PayPal has actually shut down the 4chan donations in the past and personally stolen donation money from me.
Satan, the reason why you're wrong on that is that Patreon utilizes PayPal in order to function.
Not always.
Always, yes.
Oh, really? They changed it?
Unless
They
I'm
lost their
wrong,
payment processor?
they've never had one. They've always used PayPal.
I don't think so.
Do
Do you remember Sargon?
Sorry, say it again. I was arguing with the chat. What was the?
Did Patreon ever have a direct credit card payment system? I thought it did.
I actually don't know. I mean, when I get Patreon funds, it can go straight to you go through a PayPal account to my bank account.
Huh.
So I don't know about
Maybe
the
it
other
is
way
still
though.
using PayPal now. I did hear that when they were arguing with CopyPaste, the owner of 8chan, that they might have been losing some Visa, MasterCard style integration or something.
Okay. Kevin's telling me that I'm wrong on this one. You can also use cards, and I'm taking his word on this one because I know he uses Patreon to fund
okay,
certain
cool.
people.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so-
don't know.
All right, so I was wrong about them. They do utilize PayPal, but not exclusively so. So that actually clears up a couple things in my mind. That was an error
Yeah,
on my
avoid
part.
PayPal. Don't use them unless you have no other choice.
I would say, yeah, I would honestly say to avoid most of these crowdfunding platforms, like they really gotta go through some reforms and stuff. But from the angle I'm coming on when I'm critical of Sargon, the reason why is that I don't just blame the platform, I also hold the people who are utilizing this system to what is in my just bear with me. This is from my perspective, from what as I see it, they're ripping off the consumers because people have money and not everyone can just throw around whatever
What
money
people?
they can to something.
What people?
The consumers.
Yeah, but who? Name one.
I don't have to name the
How
consumers.
about me?
You
I'm
do.
a consumer.
There you
Who
go.
are you talking about? That's the thing. You're talking like a social justice warrior. You're talking about women. You're talking about minorities. You're talking about gays. You're not
No.
naming any individuals
That's the point.
who are
He
affected.
got you. That was straight in the net.
It's proper collectivist bullshit, John.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
For the general public.
John, right, okay. I'm going to bed. Night, guys.
Okay, have a good night.
Sargon.
Sargon, appreciate you coming on. Have a good night.
Yeah, okay. Saying, man, I really love your channel. I know that I'm being a dick, but seriously, I actually do love it.
Yeah.
You can have me on any time, or you can come on to mine sometime. Actually, I think you have me blocked on Twitter.
What? No, I don't.
Yeah, I think you do. You don't know what my actual Twitter is, though.
Oh, right, okay.
It's funny.
What's your actual Twitter?
It's
Why do you
Savage
block
Memes.
people?
I'm cool,
Oh, yeah, I
free
do.
ringtone.
It's kind of a bad habit of his.
No, I don't have you blocked. I'm following you.
Oh, really?
Hang on.
I would have sworn that was. Oh, maybe that was Oliver
What?
Campbell.
Motherfucker, I'm following you, son of a. You're not
Oliver
even following
Campbell
me.
definitely has me blocked.
Sorry,
Oh,
why
Oliver,
the fuck-
Oliver
why the
Campbell's
fuck
funny
are you-
because the funny
Wait,
thing about
what's up, Sargon?
You're not following me, son of a bitch. How dare you?
Maybe I blocked you.
But no,
Anyway.
seriously, man. I know
Anyways,
because it's late, but
Okay,
So,
well, I'm
John,
going
man,
to take up Satan on that point, though. But have a good night, Sargon.
yeah, I will, man. But John, seriously, man, you're not in the right here, man. And
Well,
I know.
at least you came to my face to say it, so I appreciate that.
Okay, man. Well, take it easy, everyone. See ya.
Take it easy, Sargon.
All right. Why did you say that Sargon actually made the point? Because I don't think he actually had a point. I think he just
Well, okay. Let's go into this one thinking that he's absolutely correct when he says that all 77 backers were friends and family of the developers.
Okay.
If that's the case, and the friends and family of the developers were more informed than the average Kickstarter user, for example, they knew that they were giving their money to Sargon and Sargon's friends to make a video game, and they didn't necessarily want to get a video game, then there are no consumers affected. When we're talking about law and stuff, I mean, I know that Sargon was a little bit quick to pull that card, but if we talk about like anti-consumer practices and stuff, and we're talking about antitrust law, in order to get pulled up or indicted or whatever on antitrust charges, harm to the consumer has to be proven. So if you have some huge mega corporation that's a monopoly, right, and it's doing nothing but good for the customer, if it's not actually defrauding everybody, if it's not fixing prices, if it's not actually operating less efficiently and stuff than smaller splinter corporations would, then there's no way for the government to bring antitrust charges. They just can't do it. They have to prove during the course of the investigations that the customer suffered. So if I apply the same standard to your argument, I would have to, in order to be pissed off at Sargon, prove that at least one of Sargon's 77 backers were negatively affected, that they were actually tricked.
No, I don't agree with that at all. An anti-consumer practice is an anti-consumer practice, period, even if the people are like, okay, that's perfectly acceptable. And the reason why I call it anti-consumer is because he announced the release of the game to be May 2014. That was
well, hang on. I'd like to take that point. So you said that an anti-consumer practice is an anti-consumer practice, even if it's not defrauding anybody. So
No, I didn't say that. I said it's anti-consumer, even if people are okay with taking the lesser deal. Because
so hang on a sec. Now, the people in Sargon's Kickstarter, if they truly were 77 friends and family, they were not trying to buy a video game.
there is a point you missed there, though.
What's the point?
Okay. He said friends and family of all three. That includes Giuseppe. Giuseppe left the project, which means his friends and family aren't necessarily well informed.
Well,
Yep.
we can't control that. I don't see that as a compelling argument.
Okay. the reason why this is kind of like an off tangent point and is completely irrelevant is because it doesn't matter that people aren't actively protesting. A consumer advocate isn't supposed to just rest on his laurels and just wait for, just try to find somebody who's upset about a particular deal being offered or made and people are getting ripped off, because that doesn't always happen. It's just not something that happens. A consumer advocate is supposed to take a look at a situation, like whether something's a good investment or a bad investment, and see if people are getting a good deal or not. Because in this case, the Necromancer, the people who funded it, they're certainly not getting a good deal. Like that, I don't think that's a debatable point.
Well, I would disagree, because if those 77 people were in fact friends and family, then they likely weren't backing it to get something out of it. They were just donating money.
Well, no, that's not the case, because the deliberate exchange was, if you pay this much money, you get something in return at such and such.
No, that's what it looks like to you.
Doesn't matter. It looks like to me. That's how it's presented to the general public, which is exactly why.
No, the general public is not impacted because
is to basically going ahead and putting out this thing about this.
No member of these 77 backers were part of the general public.
Here's the problem with this argument. It's the same argument that Polygon used to deflect against objections to their style of journalism.
Did they affect people?
Not the people who are complaining about Polygon. No.
So the people who complain about Polygon were not affected in any way by Polygon's articles.
Ding, ding, ding.
That's not true.
Not directly, but indirectly.
No, they were directly affected.
How?
Polygon was printing lies about people, real people.
Okay. Specific. Let me rephrase that. Specific individuals, like were they involved with the Brad Riddell case?
Yeah, but we're friends of these people also.
Okay, gotcha. Now, specific people that they mentioned in their articles, so they basically said this person is lied about, whatever. Those people were directly affected. But when it comes to stuff like the Gamers Are Dead articles, or trans issues, or stupid social justice warrior-y opinions, or sloppy journalism, or unethical stuff like that, all those stuff, it doesn't directly affect them.
The Gamers Are Dead articles were direct attacks to try to change people's opinions and influence people's opinions negatively.
Okay, but how was anyone really affected by that?
The people who read Polygon,
yes, how
themselves started treating us like shit because of the Polygon articles.
No, I would actually argue that the people who read Polygon were already drunk the Kool-Aid and would already treat you like shit regardless.
But
so basically, what you're arguing
no, there was no anti-Gamergate nonsense. There was no Gamers Are Dead bullshit before Polygon and the other.
Yes, there were actually. I believe there was. I don't have the sources on that immediately at hand, but there were numerous documented anti-gamer sentiments. Like there was in the Escapist, for instance, in 2005, there was an article published.
Not like this. This changed the game.
True. This was the biggest assault and affront on that. But there have been others.
And that's the same reason that people got upset when these same outlets would publish things like gamers are entitled. Gamers don't have the right to get things like private servers and binaries for the server of Battlefield 4. They don't have the right to complain on day one when Diablo doesn't work. They don't have the right to expect offline single player. They're entitled. They don't have the right to expect that their champions that they bought.
My consumer approach, and having that approach is not something that I'd ever want
to have. And when that is the dominant opinion, when they spread that enough, it has a negative impact on gamers. That's what I believe.
All right,
and that's why I get upset about that.
Hold on.
When 77 people back Sargon's Kickstarter, and those are all friends and family, and they're not even trying to get a video game out of it necessarily.
But here's the thing. Satan, back up. I actually agree with your statement about, the articles about how it negatively affects the industry with public opinion. The problem is, what I don't think you're grasping here, is that when you have a deal like Necromancer, we have a deal like, what's a good example? Mighty Number 9. When you have a Star Citizen, etc. Those are granted, they're greater to lesser degrees. You can also throw in Double Fine. When you have people using Kickstarter either incompetently or maliciously to make money, this
is a good one. Let's compare and contrast Necromancer to the Double Fine Kickstarter. What was that thing called? Double Fine Adventure turned into Broken Age. Wow, that was so fucked up.
That was.
Okay, let's compare and contrast. How is it similar
Before you continue, I want to preface this by I'm not saying that Sargon's Necromancer Kickstarter was as bad as Double Fine. It would take a Herculean task to accomplish that.
I don't think it was really bad at all. I don't think anybody was negatively affected by Sargon's Kickstarter.
Well, you can believe that, but people poured money into it, did they not? They're now out of that money, and therefore it's gone. It's
Well,
not like
no, they got what they wanted out of it.
not really.
Yeah.
The game's not released.
If it wasn't, no, they didn't necessarily want the game to be released.
They wanted the game to be finished, didn't they? And they paid.
Well,
money
not
to be finished,
necessarily.
didn't they?
Did Brianna Wu's parents want her to produce a video game and they gave her $500,000? I guarantee you they didn't even think that she would succeed.
The money's still gone, and yeah, that's a waste of money. She should have gotten the money either.
Well, yeah, but they didn't think that she would produce a game.
True, they may have not thought they'd produce a game, and she spent the money
So
on it. And
were
the
they
evidence would
defrauded?
suggest that she bought a motorcycle with it.
It's the same case. It's the exact same thing. Friends and family gave somebody money to start a video game studio.
Okay, then my question is why Sargon is writing a Kickstarter and basically promoting this, like saying, hey, everybody donate to this thing, because in the articles he specifically says and calls for people to donate to them.
Well, the
And
Kickstarter is
basically
closed. You can't donate anymore.
at the time. This is why I brought up, this is why the press coverage and the fact that he lied about the press coverage is so relevant. And that's the thing he also tap danced around. Because he tried
What's
to
the
make it-
lying again?
He claimed that he got no coverage. He said so
Oh,
5 times. I wrote a transcript of it and I counted it. So if anyone's saying that
You
taking
still
my
don't want to
context,
concede that, huh?
no, I don't. And I haven't
Really?
listened to.
None of those 5 times can be conclusively pinned on him the way that you seem to
If
think.
you want to use a
they
rhetorical device to justify that, yeah, you're absolutely correct.
I'm not using a rhetorical device. I'm saying that it is inherently illogical
How?
because, okay, here, let's go over it again. I've got a transcript open over here. I
Okay.
hate to do this. Sargon says to start, I wish we got this kind of coverage. That means that he did not get this kind of coverage. Is that true or not?
Did
Did
first
he
statement-
not? Did he not get this kind of coverage? He's making a comparison to something that happened earlier in this conversation.
He's talking about, okay, this kind of coverage specifically refers to Veril's work research on Sargon's game, the Kickstarter project, specifically
Okay.
Veril's article.
And he did, in fact, not get the kind of coverage that he got from Varilo's article.
He got better coverage from than Veril's article, actually.
When?
Positive coverage.
When?
Veril gave him negative coverage to a game.
Well, that's not what we're talking about. He said this kind of coverage. He
I
could be
wish I
talking
could-
about anything from the tone of the coverage to the comprehensiveness
Nope.
of the coverage to the length of the coverage.
Well, perhaps. Well, if you would like, I could go back. I could.
No,
give
no,
you
no,
a
no, no,
full
no, no.
transcript of the stream if I really wanted to. I wanted to be that autistic. I mean,
Do
like,
you agree that when he says that I wish we got this kind of coverage, he could be saying
no.
that he wish he got this kind, meaning the length, the comprehensiveness, the tone, maybe even the fact that it is negative?
Okay, what I recommend you do.
No, hang on. Do you agree that that statement could mean any of those 4 things in addition to the 5th thing that you thought that it meant?
It could mean all those. It could mean all those things, but the
So
thing
it
is, he got
could.
far more coverage than what Veril gave him. Far more. We're
Well,
talking.
therefore, because there are alternatives that are less severe to your very severe extreme,
What?
you should be giving him the benefit of the doubt when approaching him. You
Why
can't
should I give the
simply
benefit
pin
of
it
the
on
doubt?
him, because that's how interpersonal relationships work.
You're making an emotional argument instead of a logical one.
No,
Yes.
I'm making a logical argument. You cannot know what Sargon meant with certainty.
Why is it
Therefore,
we must
You
give the benefit of
cannot
the doubt?
make a absolutist argument.
This contradicts something that you said a long ago that made a lot of sense to me, which is basically there's 2 types of people in the world. The people who can take a look at the evidence as evidence and draw a conclusion from the evidence presented based on a preponderance of evidence, and those who can't. And I don't think you're one of the people who can do that.
So my threshold for a preponderance is somewhere around 6 parts in 10, and your threshold for a preponderance is somewhere around 0.3 parts in 10.
Well, maybe it's maybe my preponderance of it doesn't matter because those are quantitative measures.
It's actually really, no, it's really so crazy low that most people who try to argue with you, who don't understand where you're coming from and can't think from your point of view and get in your argument, can't see what the problem is. They think you're crazy. it is that low. When you're looking for evidence of malfeasance, when you find a sniff of it, when you're like, that could be weed, or it could be WD-40, you're like, wow, it's weed! Holy shit, look at that! You know what I mean?
Well, that's to you, but you're just doing the same thing there. I don't think you can make that conclusive, by your own standards that you laid before me, I don't think you can make that conclusive a statement.
Well, you have 5 possible explanations for this one statement. 4 of them are innocuous, and one of them could be taken very negatively. And you're laser focused on the one.
I have one conclusive statement to judge from the statements he made. He basically said, I wish I had this kind of coverage when I was releasing the game, right? And this kind of coverage, remember, it's a reference to Veril's article. That is what he was referring to. And yes. I can give you that part of the video if you like, if you doubt that. He was specifically referring to Veril's one article, actually one part of one article, in regards to Necromancer, that he wished he had back in the day. Now, if you actually go look at the sources that I link in the article that show that, yeah, he did get a lot more coverage than he let on, a lot more coverage. There is very comprehensive, very well-written articles in there. There are some ones that are just a few paragraphs wrong, but don't get that wrong. But there are other articles which go on for pages about his game.
Okay.
So when you say that I'm wrong by saying Sargon lied, I don't believe that to be the case. The preponderance of evidence would say that yes, he did lie. Like, unless I'm mistaken about that. I mean,
I disagree that constitutes preponderance of evidence, because they're still focusing on only 1 or 2 possible explanations.
Okay.
There are other explanations. Sorry. Frog in my throat. There are still other explanations that benignly explain this one statement.
Okay. So what is your what are the 2 other possibilities here that you say? Because it went from 5, I guess it went down to 2. So what are the 2 other possibilities?
It's 3, right? Should have gone down to 3. So we're talking. He wishes he got the kind in tone. He wishes he got the kind in. Let's see. I would have to rewind to actually do that, but I still don't. I don't see it. I'm not seeing what your problem with this sentence fragment is.
It's not just the sentence fragment. The transcript, it goes into 5 separate statements. I wish that we got this kind of coverage. I've got a couple of other friends from a couple of other indie dev groups who have said exactly the same thing.
Yes, he's saying specifically that our other friends have said that no one will cover them.
Exactly the same thing. No one will cover them.
Now remember, he did not sit down and pen this paragraph on a pen and a pad and go back and backspace his words and choose better words.
Statements. He did make the statements, and he made.
But this is on a live stream.
True.
There's ambiguity here.
Are you going to say that Sargon made a mistake 5 times in a row?
Like, no, none of these are mistakes.
Wouldn't he want to clarify that?
Not one of these statements can be definitively confirmed to be false.
It is definitively confirmed.
No, it can't be, because when he says, I wish we got this kind of coverage, you do not know for sure that he did not mean
then why would he reiterate the same sentiment?
The type of coverage that he got in Veril's article.
Why would he reiterate the same sentiment 5 times? Like, I don't get it's an open and shut case. You're basically being obtuse about this.
He's saying that he did not feel that he got enough coverage.
No, he said he didn't get any coverage. There's a difference. 9 different articles, man.
Again, man, you're just still harping on the same point over and over and over.
Why should I let my convictions betray me? That's my question to you.
Remember what I said earlier about how you have stopped thinking about what Sargon means, and you are only listening to what Sargon said?
Okay. I buy that if you didn't say it 5 times. If it was one statement, I would agree that yes.
No, even 5 times. So we're on a roll right here, right? And we're talking and we're saying shit. And
well, I think that
I even lose track of my
Satan. I think that you have a problem assessing when someone lies. I think you're basically giving so much good faith that it's impossible for someone to ever lie.
No, that's not true.
Okay, then give me an example of where okay, then
I can pull one up where Sargon himself. Actually, you know what? I might not be able to do that. But
okay.
Sargon.
But that's the problem I'm having. One has to just basically always trust another person, even if the trust is not granted. Even if the person keeps on spinning narratives like he's been doing with GG Revolt, like he's been doing with me, like he's been doing with Verilo, like he's been doing with other people. And we're supposed to conclude on good faith, no, he's a good boy. He didn't do nothing. And he keeps on tap dancing around the issues about his Kickstarter campaign. And we didn't even get into some of the other stuff I wanted to bring up on stream. In fact, Netscape had the thing with Netscape was just really, really shady, especially since with the guide to ending Gamergate. Like it's this is a guy who keeps on getting his hand in lots of controversies, and it's over very small stuff. And he doesn't, instead of just addressing them, he keeps on tap dancing around the issue and just being completely dismissive. And we're supposed to go on good faith and presume that, yeah, he's telling the truth always. And he's evidence of telling the truth is himself saying that he told the truth, which is just mind-boggling. I mean,
you know that people don't really lie all that often normally, right?
Not if they're
lying is fairly rare. People just don't go on the internet and tell lies.
Well, this is the problem with assessing a lie, and this is why having a proper preponderance of evidence is so important, because you can't even conclusively prove a lie ever happened in a technical sense.
No, you totally can. When you catch somebody in a lie, it is damning. You have to be completely damning evidence to say that somebody is lying.
Gave evidence, and then you said the evidence.
Like, you know what their motive is. You know exactly, what they said. You've got it documented. You can repeat it back, and you've really nailed them. Like, there was this one time my girlfriend wanted to go out somewhere, and she wanted to borrow some money from me, and she wound up stealing some money from me. And I caught her doing it. And I caught her lying about it because I knew that she had that money that she'd taken from a particular place in her wallet. And that specific bill, even. So when I was like, how much money you got on you? She says, oh, none. I'm like, no, open your wallet. You got my 50 in there. And boom, it was there. That's a lie. That's catching somebody in a lie.
Okay, so tell me this. Why should anyone basically conclude that Sargon, if Sargon specifically says 5 times in the same stream that he did not receive any coverage, and it comes
he did not once say that he received no coverage in a term that I would consider definitive enough to pin him on.
Okay, then let me read all the quotes, and do not interrupt me this time. I wish we got this kind of coverage. Well, you said that's you specifically said
highly ambiguous.
Okay, you said that was quote unquote highly ambiguous. I don't find it quite as ambiguous because he did get that kind of coverage and more and better.
I disagree that he got specifically the kind of coverage from the Verilo article in other articles.
Wait, that beggars the question. Why would he want that kind of coverage?
So begs the question is what you're looking for there.
Nope,
and it does not mean what you think.
Oh, I did not say begs the question. I said beggars.
I know you said beggars the question, and that also makes no sense.
Well, that's because you're ignorant on that issue. Moving on. I've got a couple of other friends from a couple of the indie dev groups who have said exactly the same thing. They've been listening. Sorry, Sargon. I recorded Sargon's stumblings verbatim, so that's no one will cover us. Literally, that's he's saying that they said exactly.
He says that his friends have said literally, no one will cover.
Exact same thing. No one will cover us. That implies that he himself did not get any coverage.
Now, when using spoken language, you're communicating salient points. You're not communicating minutiae. Are you familiar with the concept of a salient point?
One that's well articulated and sound, correct?
Well, not quite. You're looking for the thing that statement is saying. When you're using the spoken language, you're usually not trying to pack as many meanings as you can into one sentence. You're only conveying the salient point per block of conversation. When I say something to you, you accept the premises that I have stated, and then you respond. When I say something to you, I'm trying to convey a point. And when Sargon says, I've got a couple of other friends from a couple of the indie dev groups who've said exactly the same thing, they've been literally, no one will cover us. He's conveying 2 salient points. He says that he's got friends who agree with him. And he's saying his friends have a lot of difficulty getting coverage. Now, it's true that if you take the literal interpretation of exactly what he said,
which he said they literally said exactly the same thing. Go on.
well, you know, one of his friends, I'm sure at some point has said, quote, "No one will cover us." That makes perfect sense. I would absolutely believe that. We have a lot of trouble getting coverage for indie developers.
No, you specifically said they said literally exact same thing. No one will cover us. I don't see.
Yeah, one of his friends, at least one of his friends, have been like, literally, no one will cover us. I absolutely believe that.
Okay, so what you're trying to tell me is that despite the fact what's obvious to anyone listening to this or anyone reading to this, that, you know, you didn't get any
No, I
coverage.
don't think it's obvious at all. In fact, I think that very near everybody in our chat disagrees with you.
I don't care. It's an ad populum argument.
Well, yes, that was an ad populum argument, but it's the only barometer by which we have to measure this, you know, this concept.
Potentially, but the thing is, if he's saying 5 times without clarifying that he got coverage from certain websites 5 times in a row, and he specifically has the time.
Did
to
he
think
get
about
coverage from Polygon? Because he's specifically talking about
it.
Polygon.
We're focusing on one particular statement, and I did focus on that one because I would love to have that in an article on Polygon or something. If he just said on Polygon,
Did he get articles in the big outlets? Was he in Kotaku? Was he in Polygon? Was he in Rock Paper Shotgun? Was he on the Escapist?
negative, not
Or
the
was
big
he on
outlets.
little teeny
Not
tiny places
only-
like Niche Gamer?
Not only talking about the big outlets, though. He was talking in general.
But in context, he's talking about coverage, maybe that hits a large number of people, like the Varilo article or Polygon or something.
Wait. Hold on, back out track. Are you saying Verilo is as big as Polygon or Kotaku?
Well, how many views did he get on that? And how much?
Not many, considering that people mostly watch the stream and not the article.
Well, how much attention did Sargon get from that? I bet he got
He
way
got
more
10
attention from the Varilo article than he did from any of the other
Not even
sources
remotely.
of coverage.
Not even remotely. He got more attention from the stream than that article.
Well,
His article maybe got a
okay.
couple
So he
thousand
got a
views.
lot of coverage from Varilo.
He got more coverage doing the stream than he did from Verilo.
Okay.
Sargon gave himself more coverage than Verilo did, to be perfectly honest.
Well, we wouldn't have had material for that stream if Varilo hadn't done an article.
True enough. That's a fair point. But you can't credit Verilo's work for getting the coverage. You have to credit Sargon for hosting the stream. And
No, I totally can credit Varilo's work for getting the coverage. Maybe
No.
Sargon thought it was particularly inventive, and he wanted to.
Argument to defend a point that you clearly don't have the standing on, because your point is that, oh well, he didn't mean this way when
No. My point is that it is unreasonable for you to believe that Sargon meant and only meant the one thing that you take issue with, when it sounds to me like, based on this transcript, the preponderance of evidence here is suggesting to me that he's complaining about the difficulty in getting coverage from large gaming news outlets.
Well, if that was the point he wanted to make, he could have expressed it in better words.
Yeah, he could have, but he was on a stream. He was using spoken English. He was talking to people. He was having a conversation. He wasn't writing a Medium article. He did not have the luxury of using the backspace key and typing the better way to articulate the exact thoughts that he wanted to convey. And he did not have the ability to cram more than 1, 2, or 3 salient points into every sentence. You know what I mean?
Wait, I think we can actually come to a conclusion here on this particular point, so we can get on to the next one. I'm not sure if I fully agree with you on this one, but in your opinion, if someone speaks on a stream like this, right, and they say something that may be taken out of context or something like that, or it might be interpretable, or maybe they, or better yet, more to the point, they just didn't have the right words at the time. They just misspoke in some way, right? And they can even do this over and over again, right, on the same stream.
Potentially, yeah.
So
I mean, we're talking about one block of conversation here that's about, less than 2 minutes long. So this is a pretty atomic event.
Okay, I can actually see your point here. I'm not sure if I agree, but it is something to consider. One thing I will do for the article that I did write about Sargon, since he did give me a reply for this, I will have to update it saying that he specifically said that he didn't mean what he said. That's part of my job at like this, because the article here is like an act of journalism, so I would have to actually do that. So I actually think you do have a bit of a point there.
I would disagree with you that he didn't mean what he said. He meant exactly what he said, but you read more into it than what was there.
That doesn't make sense. I mean, you're kind of trying to have your cake and eat it too.
It's not Sargon's fault that you have read into this more than is there. It's a failing of yours, I believe. You have failed to understand the points that he was trying to convey. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. This happens to everybody. But if you think about it from my point of view, I'm sure that you can understand where I'm going with this. The vast majority of people who hear that conversation will not be reading that deeply into it. They won't type it out the transcript, and they won't read the exact teeny tiny specificity that you have gleaned from this conversation. They will hear the salient points that he was trying to convey, which was he wishes he got that kind of coverage. He kind of likes the coverage that he got from the Varelo article. He's probably discussing, or rather, he's probably having fun discussing it.
But the problem with that is that the salient point is he got no coverage equivalent to.
No, that's not the salient point. Because when you say you got no coverage in colloquial spoken English, it is very likely that you are exaggerating. And it is known and understood.
Okay, when you're addressing concerns of a journalistic nature, when like the factual accuracy of things, right? And you make a statement that is inherently factually accurate, even if it is acceptable in colloquial speech, right? Normally, if you're going to be saying that, and then you basically say repeatedly the same error of the absolute statement that we didn't get any coverage, like in different words.
He only said that he didn't get any coverage once.
Okay.
And that could be read in different ways. Because when he said we couldn't get any coverage, he was talking about the past, and he was talking about the time period in which, I quote, most of it is family funded and friend funded. There's very, very little of it from backers we don't know. So he's in the time period here. He's speaking from when he was raising money and in the early stages of the Kickstarter, and definitely before the Kickstarter was closed. And he said, we couldn't get any coverage, man. That doesn't sound like a scathing accusation. He's not setting up his soapbox and standing on the top of the soapbox.
I interpret this statement, but my point is the coverage would have been nice. Keep in mind, he prefaced this that he would have liked coverage that Varelo gave him, and he got a lot more coverage than that.
Okay. Again, you got a different type of coverage from Varelo.
Why would he desire Varelo's coverage, which was like, he was regarded as shoddy, he regarded as narrative pushing, yada yada. He regulated Varelo's article to just being terrible and all that.
That depends. Like I said before, Varelo is hitting a completely different audience than most of the other outlets that he would have gotten coverage from. And we've already determined he wasn't able to get coverage from the big outlets. Maybe this is actually more buzz.
Saying that you'd want Varelo's coverage for your game, like I don't see how that is desirable.
Well, he specifically said that he wished that he had the kind of coverage that he got from Varelo earlier in development.
Well, are you saying then there's no such thing as bad press?
No, I'm saying it might be an interesting conversation to ask Sargon why exactly he thought that it would have been nice to get more coverage like he got from Varelo. That sounds like an interesting conversation, right? I mean, that interests you, right? It's got your brain rolling. There's no reason to freak out and start calling him an ethics cuck. You can have a very interesting stream about it.
You went back to the whole ethics cuck thing. I didn't even call Sargon ethics cuck.
Oh, you totally... Oh, well, you might have been saying that about the other guy, Gething.
Yes, I did call him one. I did not call Sargon one on the stream, at least not to the best of my recollection. If I did, I made a mistake. I recalled incorrectly, but Gething I did, Sargon no. Yeah, maybe I could, maybe in that particular context, I could have avoided the term ethics cuck. But at the same time, though,
the overarching idea that I'm trying to get at here is that there's a lot of places doing a lot of bad shit, and there's a lot of bad shit that's happened in the past, and the games magazines, the online outlets, they're still not behaving with anything approaching ethics.
Nope.
Like, even though I talk a lot of shit about Star Citizen, I'm a real big Elite Dangerous fan, so you guys have to put that in context, because I really like that game and it colors my opinions, and I like to be upfront about that. But when we go into this into this Star Citizen thing, and we look at what the Escapists did when they ran this article, they inserted a new writer that they took straight out of Gamergate for political reasons. They put him into the this writing position with no prior experience, no prior history. This person's not a journalist and doesn't know the first thing about journalism, as far as I know. And then this person writes this horribly scathing article about a company that could completely destroy their business, and they do it on a very strong platform, The Escapist. Then, I mean, yeah, Star Citizen really has some serious complaints there. That's an interesting fight to have.
That's an interesting point, but all that matters in that case is the evidence. Does the evidence show that they were corrupt, or does the evidence show they weren't corrupt? That's what matters to me. And
more information is still coming out. And I mean, that's cool stuff to talk about. That's a cool hill to die on. You know what I mean?
If you're saying that, okay, here's the problem I'm beginning to have when it comes to, like, you know, journalists reporting on things, and stuff like that, right? Like, you can't possibly have a holistic worldview. It's impossible. You can't know everything.
You can.
All right, that's a very interesting perspective. How can anyone know everything?
You can't know everything.
Okay, but then what point did you just...
Never mind. Continue okay. That thought.
Okay. The point is, like, you can't know everything. The question is, how much due diligence did you perform your due diligence to get as much of the story as possible, to get all the pertinent facts and information to the best of your ability? And after you release the article, like, if the answer to that question is yes, and you release the article with all the information available, and you say that, right? And then later it's brought to your attention that more relevant facts are like, hey, well, actually this, that, and the other thing, this actually, you left this out, or you actually got something wrong. You basically get more information added on to the information that you yourself collected. Your responsibility as a journalist is to update the story with that information. If you don't do that, then you're unethical. But if before that you actually brought everything together and brought the facts to light,
I don't think that is correct.
Interesting. When does a journalist fail in this regard then?
There's many crossroads at which you can fail in this regard. For example, one of the alleged crossroads that supposedly...
Cut out there, Satan. Your mic cut out. Like, it can't hear you. You got to start.
Sorry about that. It was the power from my mixer.
Huh.
That happened twice before. I think you just didn't notice, though. Anyway,
gotcha.
One of the alleged crossroads that Lizzie F620 fucked up in here was she supposedly did not wait long enough after the Star Citizen developers responded to some of her emails. And then later, she claimed that her emails were in the spam folder. So this person who doesn't even know how to use a spam folder is the one in charge of vetting responses to articles, to upcoming articles that could destroy multi-million-dollar businesses. Now that right there is a pretty strong allegation of, what would you call that? Incompetence, I think I would call that. And Liz F620 admitted that this response email, which should have been included in the original article and wasn't, was in the spam folder.
That's an error on Lizzie. That would be an error on Lizzie F's part. I agree, but
we have here a situation with clear ties to popular game journalism in The Escapist, clear ties to Gamergate, with clear evidence of malfeasance, and it has high severity and impact on a multi-million-dollar business. This is interesting to people and something that people would like to tune into a stream to hear people talk about, because there's points to discuss and arguments to be had that actually affect the industry. But when we're talking about some shit that Sargon did, over £8,000 on a Kickstarter 2 years ago that could or could not be interpreted in a particular way depending on how you read it. You know, nobody really gives a shit about that. And it's not worth getting all heated about when there's stuff that is worth getting heated about happening in the other room down the hall. You know what I mean?
Potentially.
At the same time, I do like catching people and tearing down their poor arguments. I think that Sargon's defense of his Kickstarter was really bad.
Would it make you less trusting of him, given the way he's reacted to all these this stuff?
I wouldn't say that it would make me less trusting. I think that he reacts very similarly to the Mind of Micah guy from Tech Raptor. I think that a certain type of person like that with certain behaviors and stuff tend to react very negatively when questioned. They don't like the feeling of being accused. And I think that when Sargon is accused, he may tend to go into his fight or flight mode. I think he gets a little bit of the adrenaline, but that's the biggest criticism that I can level at him, you know?
I think that you're basically putting way too much onus on me and not enough onus on him, considering his capacity as a YouTuber and the fact that he does regularly do acts of journalism, and the fact that he has a large following and lots of clout. And basically, you're going to me.
That's because your scale for preponderance of evidence is miscalibrated.
So you think that what I'm doing here is the worst of the two, even though what he's doing is basically spinning narratives instead of, like, actually addressing the issues in a logical, reasonable manner.
I don't care what you're doing, and I don't care about the impacts of any of these conversations, and I don't care what you and Sargon think about each other. Okay. But you are incorrect to be attacking Sargon about this particular thing. That's as far as my involvement goes. I think that you're barking up the wrong tree.
I think that
you have chosen the wrong hill to die on. You know what I mean?
So you're saying that I should just admit I'm wrong here because you think that my preponderance of evidence is... Well, the thing is, though, like, when you have someone who says something 5 times, they got no coverage in 5 different ways, right? You keep on tap dancing around, and come up with justifications, defenses for it. But the fact of the matter is that these were false statements he repeatedly made on a stream. And you keep on saying...
They weren't false statements, though, because every single one of them could be read differently than the way that you took it.
Point of light, the sky is red could be seen as a true statement.
No. Yes, from my point of view, in a certain shade of light, when the sky is red, then Sargon is in the wrong. And during the hours of midnight and 11:59 p.m. on normal days, when there's not an eclipse, Sargon's not in the wrong.
Okay, so either you're saying... Okay, but here's the thing. Whenever I say, well, you're saying Sargon misspoke as opposed to lie, which could be a reasonable conclusion. Perhaps maybe I was too hasty in saying that based on your logic before. But what I can't believe is that what you're saying is that basically, these are factual statements. No, they're not. They're absolutely not factual statements.
No, from a certain point of view, they can be read as factual statements.
From a certain point of view, any unfactual statement can be
read. From the point
of
view that he was in when he made the statements, they were true.
But the thing is, you keep on trying to say that me concluding that he like if you're trying to say that I jumped the gun saying that he lied, I might actually agree with that point. But then you keep on. But the reason why I can't do that is because when I say, he misspoke, you say, well, no, because subjectively speaking, he told the truth.
No, he said what he was trying to say. What he was trying to say isn't what you heard.
No,
but it is what I heard.
I transcribed it for the people just to make sure it was perfectly clear. Like, I didn't doctor that thing just to make a point. I made sure to transcribe it, and there's even a link to that.
I know that I accept that it is an accurate transcription.
Okay.
I don't accept your interpretation of the transcription.
Well, then I'm to take words and to infer what they mean I'm supposed to go above and beyond what is normally expected from statements. And
no.
Yes.
You are going beyond what is expected of statements, and that's what's wrong.
No, I don't see that because words have meaning to them. The moment you say put this kind of relativistic notion that, oh well, the statements were true because they're true in a certain light, even though if you take them at face value, they're absolutely false.
Let's go into my favorite argument.
Okay.
My favorite argument of all time was made by Bill Clinton when he was being questioned about whether or not he lied when he said that he had not had inappropriate relationships with Monica Lewinsky. I believe the question was exactly, let's see, is your relationship with Miss Lewinsky inappropriate? And he replied, no, it is not. And then it came out that he jizzed on her dress. And then there was the question of whether or not he was lying under oath. And in response to the question of whether or not Bill Clinton was lying under oath, he said, well, that depends on what the meaning of the word is. Does is mean is now and has always been? Does is mean was at one point in the past? Or does is mean is now and never was in the past? And he meant that at the time of the question being asked, he did not have an inappropriate relationship with Miss Lewinsky any longer. And this was a semantically correct argument, and it got him out of his charges. What's that called when you lie under oath?
Perjury.
P something.
Perjury.
Perjury, that's it. It got him out of his perjury charges because it was a technically correct argument, and it was reasonable to believe that he did indeed think that when he responded to the question. It was very sleazy and weaselly, but it was a very good argument.
Well, that's the problem now, isn't it? When you have people tap dancing around issues and deciding that, oh, well, I didn't mean it this way, I meant it that way. Words lose their meaning.
Now, that's not what Sargon was doing. I don't think Sargon was intentionally using the is argument. I think that Sargon was just making a benign argument. And I think that you stumbled in and started making the is argument.
What? What do you mean the is argument?
When you say that Sargon meant when he said, I wish that we had this kind of coverage, was I didn't get any coverage. That's reading it in a twisted way that you have to think about it from a certain angle for it to make sense that way. It's the is argument.
By that logic, what you just, okay, if you're going to make an appeal to relativism like that, by that logic to put a Sargon in an innocent light as you are doing, you have to do it in a twisted way to do as well.
That's correct. Unfortunately, in order to disassemble a twisted argument, then you have to delve in.
Wait, hold on. This is an interesting thing because that means that statements are neither true nor false.
Now, that depends on the context in which they're spoken. Well, remember, in a spoken conversation between two people, language is ambiguous. And if you've ever worked a help desk and had to teach people how to fix their computer over the telephone with no visual aid, not being able to see what they're doing, then you know very well just how ambiguous spoken language is and how quickly that shit can clear up when you finally get them to open a ticket or write an email.
Yes, but the problem is what you're saying.
Spoken language is very ambiguous.
The problem is if spoken language is always ambiguous, and any spoken statement ever is neither true nor false, and it means meaningless.
That's not true. Well, there's a continuum here.
Okay,
there is a level
interpretation of true or falsehood of statements any more or less valid than mine. That's the thing that I'm getting here. Like if my stance, and the reason why I called him a liar in the article, the reason why I said that was because these were objectively false statements. Like they're false on their face. And he said
they're only false from a certain point of view, and they are not false from others. They're ambiguous. But there's a question there, but there is not an accusation.
Now, this is the problem I'm having with this interpretation of language here. Basically, your interpretation of language is one more relativistic, reminds more conscious.
Not language. Spoken language. We're talking about a stream, not the written word.
But that's a very interesting perspective there because it basically allows a lot more exceptions to people what they say.
It's about understanding the context in which the statement was spoken.
I think you're trying to. I think you're
Even
too eager
even
to
in
defend
law,
Sargon.
this is done.
I
Even
think-
when interpreting the law, a lawyer and a judge must go through case law and consider previous rulings and the original intent of the author of the law when deciding how to apply the law. And this has to be done in the context of written and spoken communication as well. And in the context that Sargon was
you're
in,
giving way too much exception to Sargon's multiple spoken statements in the stream. Like
I'm not. I'm
because-
not.
No, but the problem I'm having with this is that you specifically said you were trying to make the case that from your vantage point, Sargon misspoke. And I was like, okay, well, I can see your perspective on that, and perhaps I was wrong. But then you go ahead and say that Sargon didn't misspeak, but was saying everything. This just doesn't make any sense. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Either Sargon misspoke or he lied. Pick one.
No, you can't just pick one in this context because it's not clear.
Okay. Ignoring the fairness of evaluation stuff like that. Statements can be judged based on true or falsehood, like through basic dialectics, right? Like if I say, for instance, the sky is blue, then the sky is blue. If I say the sky is red, then the sky is not red, so that's a false statement. I mean, it's truth and falsehood that we're dealing with. Wouldn't you agree with that?
No.
Why not?
I would say that truth and falsehood in the context of this conversation is not a binary. It's not a binary scale. There's not a clear point at which it cuts over from being true to being false.
Okay, then I still don't get why you're saying that when it comes to the accuracy of his statements, that you can stand by his statements and defend them as being accurate, even though they're clearly not accurate. We didn't get
because there is let's say that Sargon's statements fall at the 50% mark. They're halfway between accurate and inaccurate. They're essentially meaningless statements.
If there's inaccuracies in the statements, they're inaccurate.
See, this is where your scale is miscalibrated. That method of judging truthhood or falsehood on a binary scale does not apply to spoken conversation unless significant effort is introduced to remove the to remove the ambiguity.
If I can go on a slight tangent on that one, when you say that, would you say all the people who are looking at that stream, that debate stream between Verilo and Sargon way back a few months ago, and make a conclusion, not based on Verilo's words or any kind of research or evidence they did, but based on that exchange alone and making conclusions like people have done, are wrong?
I didn't follow that.
Okay.
Could you repeat?
A lot of people drew their conclusions on Verilo because of a stream Verilo and Sargon were on and exchanged in spoken words their points and arguments. Would you say it's unfair for people to have judged the situation of Sargon or Verilo based on that exchange alone?
To a point, I would say that it is not unreasonable for them to judge Verilo based on his behavior in there.
And what about Sargon?
Or Sargon, either one, either or both.
I don't agree. I think that people's actions do matter. Like if I say something on a stream, it doesn't matter. If like for instance, people.
No. I think that it's not unreasonable to draw conclusions about people based on their behavior in a stream.
Okay. Just clarifying that. But back to the point here about spoken word. I don't agree with your conclusion that statements are neither highly subjective. You can't draw conclusions based on their accuracy.
No, you can, but those conclusions are drawn on a sliding scale.
Well,
they're not 100% true or 0% true. They're 20 to 40 to 60% true, and they matter in context. What people are talking about when they make the statements colors how that scale is perceived heavily. Because we're talking with literary devices like exaggeration, simile, and metaphor. And those, when they're not meticulously penned in an article, and even sometimes when they are highly ambiguous and can be taken in many ways. So it should maybe piss some people off and not others. But when you're trying to evaluate the situation from an objective standpoint, you have to take the context into account. And you have to say, well, I think that it's pretty likely that Sargon was making some exaggerations, and maybe he got a little bit more coverage than he deserved for this particular title, and maybe he's blowing some smoke up our asses. And then it could be anything between that and, Sargon's got some valid complaints. I bet he really does know some people who have had a lot of trouble getting coverage. Why aren't the major outlets giving indie games coverage if they're not made by their friends?
Okay.
You know, anything between those
so I
2
would
points
say-
would be acceptable.
Okay, so you're going to say that there was truth in the statements, but there was also colored truth in that statement, right? When that's a
Absolutely.
lie.
Yes.
Okay, well then.
Absolutely, there was colored truth.
Okay, then in that case, I would say that colored truth would be a form of lying. It's not a big lie, but it is a small lie.
I disagree vehemently.
Okay, explain. I need to hear this one out.
It's not a lie. A lie means like way off on the right-hand side of the scale. It's totally out there. You've completely proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this guy is lying. He knew it was wrong when he said his lies, and he did it to deceive you for some purpose. It's very strong. It's like saying, I don't have an appropriate comparison to make here.
Well, the issue I'm having here is that I think there's a lack of a vigilance when it comes to discerning the truth.
It's like the difference between a bird and a parrot. It's like you're saying, wow, look at that. It's a cockatoo. But it's not a cockatoo, it's just an African gray. And you just call all parrots cockatoos. You know what I mean? And, you know, maybe when somebody is exaggerating because they think that their point is really important, like indie games that aren't made by people's friends can't get on Polygon. Like, you can exaggerate a little bit there. It's okay. That's a really big problem.
Well,
Right?
that actually would be a problem nonetheless, because when you say you haven't get any coverage, and then it turns out you did, but you were just using
No, but he
exaggeration.
didn't get coverage from the big outlets. He got coverage from small outlets. And he
Then-
sent all these interview requests to the big outlets, and nobody even bothered to reply.
But not
I don't
nobody
think his
did.
statements are wrong in that context.
Well, that's the problem I'm seeing. I'm seeing that there is wrong statements being said there. It's like saying like it may not be a big lie, but it would be a small lie, and the small
It's an
lies add up.
exaggeration, and it's exaggerated for literary purposes.
I don't think an exaggeration in this context can be considered literary purposes. It's a spoken word. It's like he's going on stream and he's talking about like how, oh, we didn't get any coverage, and if you exaggerate the truth, it can be like a rhetorical tact. I admit that, but in this case, it doesn't come across as that. It comes across as it helps him to say, oh, well, I didn't get any coverage, as opposed to I only got some coverage for my game. And if he had said that he only got some coverage for his game, it would have been better. That's the thing I have an issue with. It's like it helps, this exaggeration helps his defense, and that may leave a colored perception of reality onto the viewers when he knows better.
That's ableist, man. What if he just doesn't have the ability to convey that information verbally? That's ableist. You are a dirty, ableist, transmisogynist, ethics cuck.
I am a horrible shitlord. What can I say?
Shit, Lord.
All
No,
right,
but I think that your expectations are insane. I think that they are completely in the realm of batshit bonkers. And a problem that I have with that, and a problem that I think that people in Gamergate, if you can still call them people, I don't know what I would call them anymore. Jews, maybe, I don't know, something like that.
well, it
Fuck
depends-
Gamergate. It can fucking suck me off. You people have destroyed everything that I've worked for like the last year. Fucking cunts. Anyway, where was I going with that? I was going to talk about something. What had
Yes.
you done?
I think we
You did
lost
something wrong.
Sargon debate, where my arguments were wrong. Was kind of over here. We kind of went on this one point for a long time about the aspect of the lying aspect. Like, you think that I'm jumping the gun here. I'm saying that I'm not jumping the gun here. So it's
You're just crazy, I guess. I mean,
oh, that's right. Ethical standards. Like you're saying that my ethical standards are too high, and my expectation of other people is way too high. Correct?
No, your expectations in terms of ethical standards aren't necessarily miscalibrated. You're demanding that that ideas be presented to you in a certain way so that you can digest them with zero ambiguity. You know what I mean? You're arguing that this statement that is ambiguous should have been unambiguous. Do you see?
Actually, I would agree with that. And that's why I say that
that's not possible. He can't.
Yes,
he can't do it.
Okay, I get what
you can't go on a stream and talk for 2 hours and make unambiguous statements for 2 hours.
Wait a minute. Okay, first off, I don't think it requires you 2 hours to do it. You can just simply say, we only got some coverage. We didn't get as much coverage.
No, he had a 2 hour long stream. 2 hours long, right?
What?
Or, however long it is. How many, we can even go into the hours and hours and hours he's put in total.
Okay.
Right? So if somebody talks to other people for that long, there will be ambiguity. It's impossible to avoid because that's how spoken language works.
I get what you're saying. Like when you say that basically there's a certain acceptable level of ambiguity. It's just I don't see in this particular context of that acceptable level of ambiguity being there. This context, I don't see it. Like if it was a single statement, I wouldn't have even bothered with this. I would have just been like, okay, so he misspoke once, whatever. But he said it multiple times is the issue.
But he said it multiple times in slightly different ways each time, and from that information, you can determine his where he was coming from. You can determine what he meant by those statements. And if you take all of the context, all of these sentences, not each one by one, but if you take all of them, you can see he wants more coverage. He wants the coverage from Polygon or something, quote, a big outlet. He wants the kind of coverage that he got from Verilo, maybe something that he can talk about in a stream.
Well, that's the issue.
He's got other friends who are having trouble getting coverage. In fact, his friends have even said that nobody would cover them. And he said that when he was doing his Kickstarter, he couldn't get coverage.
Well, yeah, but he did get coverage when he did his Kickstarter's a thing.
Yeah, did he get it from big companies like Polygon? Did he get the same kind of coverage?
He got better coverage
from Verilo?
He got far better coverage from Verilo.
So would you like to now debate me on specifically what better coverage is and what exactly Sargon thinks constitutes better coverage? Is that the hill that you want to die on? Is that the way that you want this conversation to go out?
Why do you keep on saying the hill you want to die on? I mean, like
because
it's an open and shut case. I mean, he said statements that were false.
It's ambiguous.
Okay, here's the thing. Instead of agreeing with me that he lied and just saying it's an acceptable lie, you keep on making this minutia about that it's not a lie because
he wasn't lying. When he was in there and he was speaking, he was trying to convey the truth.
I'm sorry.
And it looks to me like the truth was conveyed.
But the
only person who read it wrong was you.
No, I think other people saw the article and were like, yeah, you got a point there.
I don't see my Twitter blowing up right now.
It doesn't really matter if, like, look, that's a not popular argument anyway. Like, if you're going to try to tell me that basically this is an acceptable lie, you can make that argument and that.
No, it's not a lie. He did not mean to tell lies. He wasn't trying to speak untruths. In fact, he spoke truths.
What?
You read untruths. You gleaned untruths by reading too deeply into what he was saying.
No, I read which is it? Did I just skim over what he said, not get the nuance, or did I read too much into it and add my own nuance? I mean, you got to pick one.
You're not reading it like a human being is supposed to read it.
But you're reading
it out of context.
No, I'm not. I gave the context. I provided the link to the video. I put the transcript there. I listened to it all. I
Well,
saw
the
it in
context says very specifically that he's looking for the kind of coverage he got from Varelo. He's looking for it from big outlets, and he does not feel that he got it. And he
You're
also
cherry picking.
does not feel that his friends got it. See,
Like-
now you're saying I'm cherry picking.
Well, you
Am
are.
I the one who's not reading deeply enough into it?
I
think that these are the salient points.
think
These are the important parts he was trying to convey.
But the salient point is untrue. That's the problem. And instead of conceding that, you keep on tap dancing around that.
It's not untrue. He meant what he said. He said he couldn't get coverage from Polygon and other big games journalist outlets.
Okay, this conversation is going boring, so I'm going to go a little philosophical for this. Now, do you believe there can be more than one truth?
Absolutely.
I fundamentally disagree. This is the problem we're having. That's why we can't agree on this issue, is because we have two different perspectives of reality. I see there only being one truth with many different perspectives. You see there being multiple truths being possible. I don't think you have quite as an objective.
You don't know what the one truth is. And
Nobody
neither did Sargon when he was making these statements. He has a limited amount of information available to him and a limited amount of bandwidth with which to verbally convey this information.
Well, here's the thing.
His conclusions can be incorrect and his statements can be ambiguous without it meaning that he's lying.
Here's the thing, though. The thing that you're missing is that he didn't. Yes, he does have limited information. All humans have limited information, whether there's multiple truths or perspectives or whatever. But he had this information available to him when he made those statements. And when Varelo continued asking him questions in that conversation there about the specific coverage, that was brief, but it was telling. He specifically said no coverage, and he echoed it multiple times. And true, he said it different ways, but he never clarified, even though having multiple opportunities to do so, that he actually did get coverage from numerous outlets that were smaller. This is the issue I'm having.
Well, when you're calling people ethics cucks and you're confronting him, he's not going to concede.
I didn't even call him ethics cuck in the article.
So this is where we get back into my moderate stance.
Okay.
When Sargon immediately freaks out and starts attacking you instead of responding to your accusations, that's a little bit of a minor misstep, I think. I think it's incorrect. I think that he should delve into a little bit more detail and try to unravel your misunderstanding. And he's not doing that. He's getting offended. And I wouldn't have a problem with that, except that he gets offended for like 2 hours, and then he complains that he was offended for like 2 hours when it comes up later, right? I mean, yelling at you and calling you names and shit doesn't do anything to sort out the problem. So that's a minor issue I have with Sargon.
Well, I actually agree.
But that doesn't make you right. The fact that he didn't refute your arguments,
I agree with you.
Doesn't make them correct.
Yeah, I could agree with you on all these points here. I agree that no matter which way like, fallacy by fallacy is a thing. I mean, like, just because Sargon disagrees with me doesn't mean that.
Right.
Exactly. I completely agree with that. And in fact, if I'm wrong in something, I can admit that. In fact, I can admit that from what you're telling me, it may have been too. What's the word I'm looking for? It may have been presumptuous for me to preclude the possibility that he was too flustered to have brought up that information. So by putting down that he lied and editorializing it, I can get your perspective on that.
I believe that if he was here, he would disagree that he was too flustered. However, I agree that he was indeed too flustered.
Yeah, like perhaps it would have been better. Perhaps in this particular case of the article, like, it is my conclusion that it lied, but perhaps it is not a shared conclusion because lies are often hard to prove, and this kind of rhetorical argumentation does.
And you have to be really careful when you level that you're lying accusation, because it's like the nuclear option. It will set them off. Like, I mean, if that's your goal, if that's what you're trying to do, then it's a good tool. But if that's not what you're trying to do, you got to use the right tool from the job. You got to go back to the tool chest and get the spanner.
Okay, well, if you're going to say that perhaps I could have written the article a bit differently, where instead of If I could have written the article a bit differently,
I don't care about the article. I didn't even read the article. All I heard was you arguing with Sargon, and it was so retarded that nobody could think that either side was right. And it was killing me that a bunch of fucking Sargon's fanboys and shit would just think that you had no point when you actually had a teeny tiny point. And it was real. It was there. It's in there. If you look close enough, you can see it. There's a little bit of reason to be a little bit wary of some of the things that Sargon has said about Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But, and the way that, I mean, I don't want to be the guy that tone polices and shit. It's just that I think there's better tools to use to get to the root of that kind of problem than we're being used.
Well, okay, actually, yeah. But the thing is, like, if you're thinking that I'm focused way too much on this lying aspect, well, the thing is, he definitely was aware of the coverage he got, and that him using that exaggeration to his benefit was the point the article was trying to make. I mean, it's just one part of his narrative.
I really suspect that when we see this coverage that he supposedly got, it's going to be fucking nothing.
It is not nothing. I checked myself, which is why I've been over this over and over.
What's the most striking? Can you pull up an example?
Okay, the most let me see.
Because if we pull this up and it's like Vice, then I'll have to eat my words.
No, it's not.
He's got like a CNBC section.
No, it's not that big. Like you said, it's smaller outfits, but there is like, we're talking like, this is not the one. I know that there's one in particular that I can bring up where basically the length of it is definitely, they did their job with that one. It's like they got into a lot of details, and it was positive coverage, which really benefit him.
But just that isn't enough to say that's the kind of coverage he wanted.
Yeah, but he specifically compared it to Veril's coverage, and it was better than Veril's coverage is the point. And
not necessarily, because it's not up to you to decide what Sargon thinks.
You already agreed to that point previously in this conversation, and you're trying to get around that.
Well, you're not. I'm irrefutably correct. You cannot tell Sargon what Sargon thinks is better coverage. He could have any reason for deciding that Verilo's coverage is better, and you are nobody to tell him that he's wrong.
For different types of coverage, like how many people it got exposed to, how many people read it, what length it was, etc. And there was a lot of length, there was a lot of clicks, a lot more clicks than what Verilo did. When you put
he has a lot more information about that than you. Maybe a lot more people contacted him about Verilo's article.
I have enough evidence and enough information to conclude that is not the case. And that as far as
you don't have enough information to conclude that Sargon believes that he got enough coverage.
But he said he did.
You can disagree with Sargon that he didn't get enough coverage. But you cannot tell Sargon that he's lying about not getting the kind of coverage that he wants.
Well, I'm assuming that he's lying because I think that he's smarter than he can make himself come off to be. Maybe that's a mistake on my part.
I think he's actually working at the upper limit.
I don't really know how to answer this. Like, if you conclude that my conclusion is that he lied was wrong, even despite the fact the evidence was there, I guess you have a more defensive perspective on these issues. Like, I've already shown, like, if you read the article, you can see black and white right there. It has his account, like, he's specifically in knowledge of this coverage going on, of these various websites going about and tweeting about it, talking about it. And he's actively in contact with these journalists. And he's also on the stream. You can listen to him talking about he didn't get
that. Now that 300,000 people stormed Twitter and told everybody that this is what's important to gamers, and he started talking about it and became a big celebrity.
No, check the dates. Whoa. Check the dates. The dates of the coverage of the game that he was promoting are all in line.
Oh, did you already link some coverage?
Yeah, it was in the article. Hold on, let me I'll link it all to you.
Is that over in the Medium thing?
Yes, it's all linked there. It's not like I'm not making this shit up. I didn't just like say, oh well.
So we had Other Worlds Software. Other Worlds Software's Twitter has fewer followers than it has 95 followers.
Yeah, at this time. But this is, keep in mind, it doesn't matter how many followers the account has, because the question is how much coverage and how much reach it had.
ZAmonthly.org, Zombie Apocalypse Monthly.
Yep, I listed these earlier. I mean, like, I'm linking them to you now. If you want, we can screen share them for the audience. I mean,
I mean, this doesn't seem like big coverage.
It's not
This is-
big coverage, but he said he didn't get any coverage. That's the problem. It's like,
Yeah, but again, I completely disagree that when he said that he got no coverage, that either he meant that he got absolutely no coverage and he wasn't simply exaggerating as a literary device, and that most, or in fact, any besides you, people who overheard that stream took it that way.
but what are you basing this on? Like, did you actually field opinions for this? Did you like, it's a valid question to ask.
And the statements are ambiguous.
Okay.
They're ambiguous. It's true.
Yeah.
And this is all Otherworld software that you have quoted over here.
It's
What
Otherworld.
is this? Is that his project? Oh yeah, he's linking to places like Niche Gamer. This is like Sargon's account, this Otherworld software thing?
Yeah, and he's even confirmed, and he even used that account to support Gamergate.
Okay, so it's not Otherworld doing the... Oh, that was ZA Monthly. Okay, so he had the thing in Zombie Apocalypse Monthly, and that's small. He's had
It doesn't-
something in
but-
Shoost,
but
which seems to be destroyed now. That website doesn't exist anymore.
But it's been between 8 different websites. You got to total those up together.
Game of Sauce. Yeah, but
cannot-
what's all of their, if you combine all of them together, all of their coverage probably doesn't add up to one Kotaku article. Or at
That may
least
be
didn't.
so, but the measuring stick would have to be Veril's article, which I'm certain that all these websites together have more coverage than Veril's article. If that's what we're going to go by.
This is April 2014. This is well when Niche Gamer was starting to get popular because of Gamergate already.
Yes, that's true. I agree with that. But again, he's claiming he didn't get any
So everything
coverage.
after about April 2004 is going to be heavily colored by Gamergate.
Well, are you saying then that it would behoove, like I'm not even sure how much more evidence I have to present. I'm like, you're actually asking for impossible proof here at this point, because I've shown you all these websites that he's actually been linking to, that he was actually
The
actually
biggest
reached out to.
review that he got was Niche Gamer in April of 2014.
Right.
And that
Which
was
is the point.
post Gamergate.
And it doesn't matter. This Gamergate timeline doesn't matter because he
It
claims he didn't
does,
get any
because
coverage
by the
firsthand.
time this article was printed, his Kickstarter was over, wasn't it?
No. His Kickstarter ended in around Mayish. I forget the exact date. Let me go check the dates on that. That is
So he had a Kickstarter right during the, right when Gamergate was really ramping up.
no, before.
Right at the beginning.
No. The Kickstarter happened right before Gamergate.
I'm pretty sure that Gamergate started in roundabouts of April
August.
14th, 2004. Maybe as early as April 11th.
Why are you
When Zoe Quinn was in Wizard Chan and the Escapist article was in production.
No, that's no.
And
That
that's when
happened.
all of 4chan was starting to get all pissed off. You see, you wouldn't know this because you came from Reddit.
No, you're talking about that. First off, the Zoe Quinn incident happened December 2013. I'm not sure you're getting the date. April 2004.
Was that 2013? It hasn't
Yeah.
been 2 years. That's not possible.
Yeah, it actually has. December 2013 was when the Wizard Change incident happened.
What?
Yeah,
Holy shit. Yeah, okay, well then this was way into it. Is that
Yeah.
December? Holy shit. I
Yeah.
smoked too much weed, man.
but the thing is, like, I present proof, I present evidence, I show that the claims are actually backed up. It's not a case of where I'm just making this up. The statements are there. Like, you can say it's the most you can say, really, now that I've actually had some time to like go over this conversation and stuff, is that it's an acceptable lie, acceptable to exaggerate in this instance. I don't find it to be an acceptable exaggeration, but either way, whether you wanted to say it was rhetorical track or whatever, it's definitely a lie that Sargon made. So that's the point I was getting at. And I think that, like, if you want
That's
to say
not a
Sargon,
lie. If I can say that it was a rhetorical device, it's not a lie. It's at best an exaggeration. As soon as you take that, it's impossible for it to be a lie if it was
Okay, so-
simply a metaphor or comparison.
okay, so you're basically saying exaggerations. No, I don't agree with that. I cannot agree with that, not in this context.
Once it's an exaggeration, it's only a lie if you exaggerate a certain amount. Is that true or false?
If you exaggerate and
If you exaggerate a
saying
certain
that as
amount,
fact,
it's a lie.
I
Is
would
that
say,
true?
okay, I can, well, in this particular context, I can agree with you there that it would be only a lie if it was exaggerated to a certain amount.
So
But I
that
think the
right there means that our truth is
measuring
no longer on a binary scale.
The measuring stick would have to be the coverage that Varel's article got, because that.
I disagree that the measuring stick is the coverage of the articles. I believe the measuring stick is Sargon's perception of the coverage that he got. And his perception of the coverage that he got is, I believe, reasonably, that he got very little or no coverage.
Okay, well, you have to keep in mind, one big thing you have to keep in mind when you make that statement was the article was released 5 hours before that stream. Was it 5 hours or was it? No, maybe.
He probably read it and decided to do a stream.
Right. But the point is, he's claiming he got more. You're claiming that that from Sargon's perspective, Varel's article was more coverage than all these articles combined. Correct?
Well, depending on the viewership of the stream that he did in immediate response, maybe it was higher than normal.
That was Sargon's stream. That was not the article.
That doesn't matter.
It matters.
It's a related event.
Okay, so Sargon covering his own. I don't get it. It's like
it's again ambiguous. You could read it the way that you read it.
But it's Sargon's
the moon
actions.
is eclipsed
If we count the stream, then it's Sargon's actions that caused him to get all those viewers, and it's him promoting his own game at that point. It's not has nothing to do with Varel's article. Which is the
don't you see? Wait, go back and think about this a second, and think about the assumptions that you have to make that statement. Are you performing mental gymnastics in order to believe that? I believe that you are.
No, you're the one performing mental gymnastics, because I keep on explaining this like dozens and dozens of times. You keep
the
on
way that you explained this does not make sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
Just because he had a stream on his own site or his own YouTube channel or whatever does not mean that he didn't get exceptional coverage from the Varelo article. Not only that, but it does not mean that the coverage that he got from himself covering the Varelo article was definitively not a result of the Varelo article. You see?
No, that's an associative reasoning. You're basically lumping in arbitrarily the stream with Varelo's article. You can't do that.
It's not arbitrary. The stream was directly about Varelo's article, and Varelo was in it to discuss the article.
Genetic fallacy. You can't attribute the stream as being part of the article. That's completely nonsensical. Varel's coverage.
It's completely nonsensical.
It is. Varel's coverage of the Kickstarter campaign is independent entirely.
But my stream that I had about the Al Jazeera article had what? We had 1,200 live viewers of that, I think. And I can pull in maybe 15 solo. You telling me that the stream that I did about Al Jazeera, which got 1,200 live viewers, was not directly a result of the Al Jazeera article, and that I would have been able to get those viewers without it?
You're making the argument that the stream was a direct result of the article getting that many hits.
The stream was a direct result of the article.
You're doing a sophist type argument where you're basically associating two completely different things in with each other. You can't.
They're not completely different. They're very closely related to one another.
It doesn't matter how closely related. It doesn't matter if they're joined at the hip.
The stream wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the article.
Right. But people tuned in not because they read the article, because you look in the comments, you can see people saying they didn't read the article, they just watched the stream. And many people who have actually watched the stream say they didn't read the article. So people watching the stream doesn't mean they read the article.
But the entire content of the stream was about the article.
Yes, it was. But most of the people there didn't read it. Now, did they? They didn't come because they read the article. They came because they like Sargon.
So your stance here is that it is unreasonable for me to believe that people tuning into the Sargon stream to hear him and Varelo discuss Varelo's article constitutes coverage.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the problem is...
Well, you are wrong, my friend.
Well, I think the issue is we disagree on a couple of key tenets, and that goes into like a kind of philosophical nature, which is kind of interesting because I can't say that
you're wrong.
No, I can't. Here's the thing. I can't say that either of us are entirely incorrect here. I'm not going to definitively say that because
you are actually entirely incorrect.
Well,
your stances one by one on a one-off basis can be justified with a lot of thought. However, your overall conclusion is hopelessly incorrect. It just can't be justified from the position of the reasonable man. You have to discount too much data.
Well, here's the question I have. What do you consider a reasonable man? Isn't that appeal to common sense?
No, the reasonable man is a construct that must be used to perform some logical operations. You must consider the information available to the party being discussed. So you have to think about it from the point of view of an impartial observer. For example, if you're considering what happened in a medical malpractice case, you have to determine not whether or not what the doctor did was correct, but whether or not a reasonable doctor could have realistically come to the same conclusions that the real doctor did. And if the reasonable man could not have come to the same conclusions, the doctor was unreasonable and therefore must be charged. But if a reasonable man could have performed the same steps with the same information available to the doctor and reasonably made his mistake, that does not constitute malpractice. Okay. And I think that you would say that it does, because a mistake was made.
No. It's how you address the mistake is far more important than whether a mistake was made or not in the first place. If Sargon just simply owned up to his failings, I wouldn't have a problem with it. In fact,
but he can't own up to his failings based on the way that you initiated the conversation. It immediately put him on the defensive and made it realistically impossible for him to make concessions to you. Because you instantly started saying, oh, he was lying about this, he was lying about that, he said this isn't true. No, that's a, what do you call that? That's a, what do you say? You're like, oh no, that's this particular type of fallacy. No, that's that other type of fallacy.
Well, then I have a question for you. Would you give Zoe Quinn the same courtesy?
If Zoe Quinn wanted to talk to me, I would have a long conversation with Zoe Quinn. Depending on her tone and the way that certain topics were broached, I may or may not become angry.
Okay, well, there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. And in fact, let's just for the sake of argument, leave the Wizard Chan out. It's instant outfit, right? Let's just bring up the whole...
That's totally impossible, because that completely colors my opinion of her, everything.
Let's just get right into it. We don't have conclusive proof that Zoe Quinn, we don't have definitive proof that Zoe Quinn went to the board and harassed the board. We don't have that. We do know she made shit up, but we don't have conclusive proof that she went down there and just basically went, oh, you guys are losers.
I believe that I have a preponderance of evidence. I have it from a very good source that she personally started the thread.
Okay.
Because Frederick Brennan personally, who was, I believe, a moderator at the time, or was good friends with the moderator, who I also know of and have been in IRCs with, but don't know personally.
Right. But here's the thing. With Zoe going, but you're claiming that your preponderance of evidence is conclusive, but isn't that like a 4/10 argument instead of a 6/10 argument?
It's not completely conclusive, and I would not demand that others have the same opinion about somebody ostensibly promoting awareness of depression, going to a website for depressed nerds, and saying that they were harassing her. I mean, she was there. She's admitted being in the thread, and then she was in 4chan later, directly insulting me personally to my face in a 4chan thread while taking pictures of her fucking boyfriend flipping me off.
Hold on.
With pictures of the IRC channel that I was in. I mean, yeah, I've got a preponderance of evidence.
But maybe
you
being directly involved is coloring your perception. So maybe you are not being a reasonable man here, and someone else looking from a third party.
No, somebody who had the information that I have available to me would come to the same conclusions.
But how do you know? I don't think that's a reasonable assessment to make, because basically you're letting your biases get the better of you. I think that you like.
No, I'm taking my biases into account.
Right, but that's exactly the problem, is you have too much of a subjective rule.
No, I don't have too much. I have enough. When Frederick Brennan tells me that somebody specific posted something specific on Wizard Chan, I believe that he, being an ex-owner and moderator of Wizard Chan, did indeed have proper information there. And I don't think that he would lie to me. We're acquainted on the internet. I have a reasonable belief that he was telling the truth.
Okay, but you
Combined
can't
with other
possibly say
information
that.
such
You can't
as
possibly
pin-
use your you can't possibly use your personal experience to basically tell other people that's the same thing, correct? Like
Well,
you
that's
can't just
correct. I'm not going to demand that other people take the word of Frederick Brennan at face value because they might not trust him the same way that I do.
okay,
And that's
okay.
perfectly
So
valid.
going
But the reasonable man would have an analog of Frederick Brennan. He would have a trusted friend. And when the trusted friend conveys this information to the reasonable man, it would give him pause. He would commit that to memory. And then in the future, when this person was on 4chan talking shit to him, to his face, those two pieces of information would mesh up and they would paint a picture. And the reasonable man would conclude that she was indeed in Wizard Chan. It makes sense.
Okay, here's the problem I'm having with this argument. It's because I could spin this argument to basically say that, yeah, you could say that, but I could also bring up other things about Frederick Brennan, which would doubt his credibility. I'm disinclined to do so, to be honest, because I actually do have respect for the guy.
You could make the argument that a reasonable man might choose to might be disinclined to accept the information of his close friend. A reasonable man, I believe, could also come to that conclusion.
But
However,
who is the reasonable man is the question. Who are you to decide what the reasonable man would or would not do? I don't believe that your standard for the quote-unquote reasonable man is a very useful or practical construct. I believe there's either evidence or there's not evidence.
You can't make certain logical arguments without the reasonable man argument. Do a quick Twitter search right now. I'm pretty sure there's a Wikipedia article on the reasonable man.
All right, I'll have to look into that later. But my point is, I did have evidence for my claims. And I did back it up.
Reasonable person on Wikipedia. I guess the feminists have gotten to this article.
That's disgusting. Like, there's no point to that. It's been known as the reasonable man forever, and then they decided to change the reasonable person. Fuck them. Anyway, I was getting out with the. I lost my train of thought. When I was getting out with the necromancer bit, when you specifically say 5 times that you didn't get any coverage, and then you come out and say
he didn't specifically say.
He did say.
He ambiguously said.
When you say statements which lead
but the statements each say something else, and only one of them specifically says that he personally got no coverage.
But the overall point is he didn't get any coverage. He keeps on saying that, or he got very little coverage using Barrow's articles as a measuring stick.
You just yourself said that he said specifically 5 times he did not get coverage, but that is not true. He only said that once.
He did not literally say that, but that is the conclusion drawn from his exchange with Varelo in that particular bit of the.
When you said that, what were you trying to convey? Because it was the exact same state of mind that Sargon was in. Why are you being so
obtuse about this? This is the question I have. Why are you being so obtuse that when I actually show you like 1,000 times that why this is the case, you keep on saying that it's unreasonable?
Because you're actually wrong, and because you just did the same thing you're upset with Sargon for doing. You just did it 20 seconds ago.
Okay, fine. I apologize for misspeaking. Are you happy?
No, an apology is not required because it's something that happens in colloquial conversation. It's
okay, well,
accepted.
If everything can be said in colloquial conversation, there's no such thing as truth, then I find your standards completely
There is such a thing as truth. It's just that you can't obtain the specific truth with accuracy from ambiguous statements. Therefore, when confronting the person about their ambiguous statements, you need to approach it with tact because they might have a good example.
Concern trolling. I mean, you keep on doing this over and over again, where you just
it's not concern trolling. It's
yes, it is.
How to have an argument.
And I don't think that's the case. Because you're basically saying that when I present evidence which backs up my claim, the evidence is invalid because the statements, oh, well, he meant something else.
No, the evidence is not as conclusive as you seem to think it is. It's ambiguous.
So
this is the same problem you have with Gething. It's exactly the same.
What is that? No, it's not. You already agree with me.
Yes, the information available to Gething when he was making the Steve Tom Sawyer decision.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Was limited. And a reasonable man could have concluded that the right thing to do was to back up Steve Tom Sawyer. He might have been wrong, but it was not unreasonable to do it.
No, it was unreasonable for him to have backed up Steve Tomstar completely, entirely, and he had a financial.
Okay, I mean, to a point it was, but
yes, there's no getting around that.
But it's not crucify the guy unreasonable. It's hey,
it
dude,
is actually
kind of fucked up.
It is no
unreasonable. And you know the Sargon thing too. I mean,
it's the Sargon thing is a minor issue.
I think you could kind of make it's kind of offensive to make the argument in the first place. You know what I mean? It's gonna put him on guard because it looks like somebody's trying to pin him into a corner.
Well, he should just own up to the fact that he
can't. He can't. Human beings can't do that. Men can't do that. When they get the adrenaline running, they can't back down like that.
I think it's too much of an emotional argument, and this is the problem having in.
No, it's not an emotional argument. It's simply reality. That's the way that they will behave. And you can overcome that. And you can help them overcome that. And if you have a civil conversation, you can get to the bottom of it, despite the fact that you both experience emotions. And just because Sargon is experiencing emotions doesn't make him wrong.
No,
it's okay for him to not concede the argument when he's pissed off.
Fair enough. I can buy that. But the thing I don't get is, the thing is, this is just like a minor point on this whole thing. We spent a number of hours going over it, but I don't.
This is the meat and potatoes, though. When you guys freak out and you start yelling at each other, it's because of one of these things that we're talking about right now. It's very small disagreement, and it's not big. You're not freaking out over the actual impropriety.
Hold on a minute. Why are you saying that I'm freaking out over this when you're the one who went on and on and on and on about this?
Because I listened to you and Sargon arguing, and every time...
but we talked about far more stuff in this. Like, that stream is far better.
Yeah, you talked about far more stuff, but if you go back and you listen to it, every time it became unproductive, every time you hit a brick wall, it's because you said something that wasn't technically incorrect, and he responded by like calling you a name, and then you both get mad. When maybe the correct response is for either you to bring it up in a different manner, or for him to actually,
or he can just
try to find the root problem.
Well, if I say something that's incorrect, he can just point it out. Like, for instance, like I brought up the David Cameron thing.
It's hard though. Have you ever heard somebody make an argument in this level of minutiae? This, in context, this sentence could be read this way. If you read it with these other, that's going pretty deep. How many people are going to give you the time of day for that kind of argument if you're being
true, but you're making it to be like the argument I had with Sargon was like that. Actually, Sargon and I were fairly reasonable to each other for the most part. There was a bit of jabs here and there, but we were able to, in that stream for I believe I was on there for 2 hours. We were able to actually cover a variety of points without rambling on far too much. That's I think you really missed that part of the context of that stream. And there was
a lot of stuff was not quite conceded, but the next topic was moved to anyway. If you go back and you watch that, you'll see you guys hit this stumbling block,
but you didn't
and
watch
then you continue, and then you hit the stumbling block and you change the topic. You hit the stumbling block, you change the topic, and then eventually Sargon gets mad and starts yelling at you, and that's what happened in that stream. Both of you gotta get over the stumbling blocks. And that's why Sargon had trouble in his debate.
Wait a minute. Why are you making the claim that this happened when you didn't watch the stream?
I watched enough of it to see it. I caught the tail, half hour?
No, you can't judge what happened. You can't judge what you did not see based on that part. I mean, I
can. I can.
Well, go watch the stream and then get back to me, because I'm not going to.
I'm not going to go watch a 2-hour stream.
Well, then I'm not going to accept your argument that that's how I behave in the stream when you didn't even watch it. Period. You can laugh it off, but you're making an unreasonable request of me.
During the last half hour of the stream, you did this over and over and over.
No.
Yeah.
It was.
We wouldn't even be here right now if you didn't.
By that logic. Okay, the reason why I have arguments like this is because people are obtuse when it comes to defending people. Very obtuse.
Not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's because your expectations are miscalibrated.
I don't care if my expectations are miscalibrated. I'm not
No,
going to
you
change
don't, but they do. It pisses them off, and it makes them really, really, really mad and unreceptive to your
Well,
arguments.
then let's go to the. I think that's a better argument to be had here. The meat and potatoes of this, right? The meat and potatoes of this are my standards too much? Do I care too much about being honest and being abiding by the consumer?
Your definition of dishonest is incorrect. Your fundamental baseline has a variable in it of the wrong value, and all your curves are completely fucked up.
Well, in that case, I'd say that people are being more and more accepting of being dishonest now, aren't they?
If you would consider exaggeration dishonesty, then I
would.
guess
Absolutely.
I guess that's where you have to go. I mean, even though you yourself use exaggeration in a literary context.
I do use exaggeration as a rhetorical device on occasion, but in this context, Sargon used it when he was making factual
This
case
is a
statements.
complex point, and he feels very strongly about it, and the reasonable man would feel strongly about it in his circumstances.
That the feelings don't matter. He was making a dialectical point.
No. His feelings do matter. He's talking about his feelings. He's talking about his experience. He's talking about his experience on Kickstarter and in the press. It's entirely subjective, all of it.
But he had better factual information available to him that he left out, even within his own subjective worldview.
But that's not his fault.
Yes, it is his fault. And he didn't address it later. He could have just, brought it up again sometime, but he didn't. He decided just to completely
The
ignore
onus
it.
is not on him to dispel your incorrect assumptions.
But by that very logic, you cannot argue against a journalist who are just going out there and giving their subjective reporting, talk about their feelings, and talk about how they view the world when it comes to reporting on things. You cannot say that's okay for Sargon not to have this level of diligence, and then to say that.
No, I absolutely can say that.
Why?
Sargon, when he says, or rather when he implies in this thread that the major game journalism outlets would not give him any press, and in fact don't give any press to any of his friends either, that, yeah, he's absolutely right. They absolutely don't. In fact, we've known for quite some time that they don't give any press to anybody except their best friends and the people fucking them.
It only takes one counterexample to prove the premise false, and I've already done that 9 times here. So what's your point?
You have not proven that his statements were lies.
You don't consider exaggerations lies, which is your problem. That's a very minority worldview of the world, actually. Exaggerations are lies. As a rhetorical device, it can occasionally be used, but this wasn't a rhetorical device. This was the dialectical exchange here. It's like you're trying to go over the minutiae and just saying, oh, well, he was on a stream, who's this? This is a lot of excuses to basically implement a subjective worldview over an objective one. Like, I can't abide by that. I mean, you can't have a completely objective worldview. It's true, because you're going to have, you can't possibly have a holistic knowledge of everything.
Is something wrong with you for expecting a stream with spoken word dialogue
when that stream is being used as evidence as to why Sargon is correct and did nothing? Yes. Other people are looking to that stream and using that as evidence as to why Sargon is a good boy. And he's completely in the right, despite the fact that he said disgusting statements over and over again and has said disgusting practices with his Kickstarter. And
I don't think that any of these mom and pop shops at the time, with the sole exception of Niche Gamer, and remembering that Sargon was becoming popular with Niche Gamer's specific audience when they did that interview, I don't think that any of the other outlets constitute games journalism. I think those are people's fucking websites and blogs that they just made up. None of those people are making significant money. None of them get significant hits. I believe that it is not a significant exaggeration for Sargon to say that he got no coverage from games journalism outlets.
It is a significant exaggeration because it is an exaggeration.
Well, then I'll repeat it. I believe that Sargon's game has gotten no coverage from game journalism outlets. It has gotten none. The only article at all has been Niche Gamer. And that's the one outlet that we are promoting as being a bastion of ethical standards.
Well, now you're just trying to compel the straw man at this point. So I'll just leave it off with this. With rhetorical. If
Okay,
you repeat a lie,
how was it a straw man for me to say that I do not believe that any of those outlets constitute games journalism outlets?
because it doesn't matter that what Gamergate supports does not support. If Niche Gamer is the only one or not, like I mean, it's still actually.
So if I made an indie game and I said,
issue.
if I made an indie game and Shipped to Block 20 was the only place that gave me an article, and I said that I couldn't get articles from anywhere, is that a lie?
Yeah, actually, if you say you can't get articles from anywhere and you get one from a website that's
From a website like Shipped to Block 20, run
Yes.
by like a buddy of mine, run by somebody whose political ideals align with mine, and that might be the only reason that I got an article. You know what? He might not even print an article because it might be considered unethical for him to do it if nobody else would talk to me, because we have an existing relationship. You know? I mean, whether or not he did would be completely independent of my criticism of the games journalism industry, right?
Well, I don't see how that's a relevant point. I mean, like, throughout this stream and this conversation, it just seems like you're trying to deliberately muddy the borders more and more. This just makes it harder for me to actually pin people who are corrupt. You're
Well,
basically
you are a
saying-
liar. You were lying when you said that I was making a straw man argument.
What?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
You knew that I was not insulting you directly or constructing an
That's not straw
argument.
man. The straw man is you
Whoa, whoa,
saying
whoa,
that-
whoa, whoa. You knew that I was not insulting you or constructing an argument for you to put words in your mouth.
Yes, you were actually, because you were making about whether or not Gamergate supports these websites. That's an irrelevant point. Okay, maybe strawman wasn't the right word. Maybe I misspoke there, and I'll make.
Well, the reason that the reason he got coverage from Niche Gamer was because he was popular with Gamergate, and Niche Gamer was appealing to Gamergate to
Well,
try
hold
to
on,
get a
hold on,
foothold in the market.
Hold on. You just for clarification, you placed the start of Gamergate with the Wizard Chan incident, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Give or take. I mean, it was a sliding scale. It's a little bit ambiguous.
well. Okay. I'm just trying to clarify that point for the audience because most people date it with the Zoe post or the birth of the hashtag.
Those people are retarded because all of 4chan were the people who started this shit, and all of 4chan was up in arms way before the Zoe post.
All right. We should actually discuss that another time. But in the meantime, with this thing, like when it comes to you building a straw man, you're basically bringing up a relevant point to the point I was making. That Sargon, all I have to show, and what I've proven, is that Sargon exaggerated. And because he exaggerated, that's a lie, because he was making it dialectical, not rhetorical. That's the issue here. It wasn't a matter of where it was like a heated argument. He just said something out of the spur of the moment that was just wrong. It's just that he repeated a wrong sentiment over and over again to impart a wrong conclusion onto the viewer to help build his case. That's
I
the issue
don't
here.
find it incorrect for him to say that when the only article that would give him significant coverage was Niche Gamer, that he could get no coverage. That's absolutely true.
It's not the only one. There was like 9 of them, and you keep.
Those are all mom and pop fucking nobody
There's
sites
no
that
such thing as a
nobody
mom and pop
reads.
nobody site on the internet. That is a bad metaphor to be using in this conversation. It's like you're trying to basically say that.
So he has no right to complain that he couldn't get enough coverage because a couple of small mom and pop shops on the internet.
He has no
Yeah,
right to complain he got no coverage when he got more coverage than your average indie game. Period. There are indie
But
games.
the
nobody's
coverage
heard
of the
that have
average
gotten
indie game
no
is a-
coverage whatsoever. Literally no coverage.
That's a
Actually no
problem
coverage.
we need to fix.
Right,
Sargon's
but
not
it's
getting
not
enough,
okay
but
for
they're also
Sargon.
not getting enough.
Not okay for Sargon to imply he got no coverage when he did get coverage. That's the
It's
thing.
a valid implication.
It is not a valid implication at all.
I find it valid.
Well, that's that. Like I said before, when we talked about this earlier, when I pointed out that you find it to be acceptable to lie in this set of circumstances, like via
I
exaggeration.
don't find it to be a lie.
Well, it's then we have clearly we have different standards for honesty. Then I think that's the problem. And then you're saying that my standards for honesty are artistic when I just want the truth. Why is it so bad for a man to pursue the truth? It's my question.
You're not pursuing the truth.
All right, then what am I doing here to you?
You have made a pre-conclusion about what Sargon believes
No,
And
I found
despite
evidence.
Sargon's protestations to the opposite, you continue to laser focus on this one interpretation of his statements that is not the most likely, in my opinion.
Okay, well, if that is your opinion and not a fact, then I'll have to say that in my opinion, because your standards for truth and truth is that you can have multiple truths, then by your own standards, in my view of the truth, this is what the actual reality is. Although I may say that it is possible that instead of a malicious lie, it may have been him misspeaking. And I will include Sargon's perspective in the article just to show that I'm not going to be dishonest here.
Your article is going to be trash because you still don't understand the context of that discussion. The reasonable man cannot conclude by any measure
the reasonable man is
Sargon
subjective.
was lying.
No. We're not going to play the reasonable man thing because one, I understand it, and two, you can say what the reasonable man would do and not do in any situation to justify your argument. For instance, the reasonable man would conclude that because evidence was presented to show that he exaggerated, to conclude reasonably from the reasonable man's perspective, whether or not it's true or not, that he lied.
It's such a small exaggeration. That's like let me make a comparison here for you. Let's say that I'm going to the racetrack in the middle of the desert. Oh, I just turned that down. I'm sorry. Let's say that I'm going to a racetrack in the middle of the desert, and I'm going to be underneath the bright sun, and I brought some sunscreen, but there's only enough for my left arm. And then I put sunscreen on my left arm, and I tell the guy down at the paddock, "Hey, I don't have any sunscreen. Can I borrow some?" Is that a lie? It's an exaggeration, isn't it?
Depends on context, really. I mean, like, you're trying to basically Sorry, I had missed that. That was my fault.
No, it's okay. You were dangerously close to the truth there. If that was
if you exaggerate, yes, that's still a lie.
If that was a circular saw, you would have tripped the saw stop.
Yeah. It's like, it really does depend on context, if you ask me. Like, in this context, it's clearly a lie because of the exaggeration. I mean, like, maybe it was something misspoken, but then again, I've also heard that someone who makes a mistake can also be lying if the statement's false, which I don't necessarily agree with. So perhaps, like I said, I am going to update the article specifically showing that Sargon did say that he does not find that he lied here and just made a mistake. In fact, he actually did say he misspoke on the stream that I was on with him. So contrary to what you're saying here, that he didn't misspeak, he actually did because he admitted this to me to my face. That's something I should have brought up earlier. So it is possible that my conclusion was a bit hasty from your judgment, and if necessary, I might actually note that in the article. Like, that is something worth looking back.
I don't really care about the article. Like I said, I'm not going to read it.
But you already said it was shit.
It's going to be really bad.
But you established that you judge things without actually looking at them. So who's more interested in the truth seeking here, me or you?
I don't know, dude, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty awful. Well, I mean, like, I can watch the first 3 episodes of an anime and decide to drop it based on the content, and I can be fairly certain that episode 6 is going to be shit.
All right. Well, in that case, that tells me all I need to know about this situation, and I am actually quite disappointed, and I'm getting more disappointed than a lot of people lately. So, on that note, like, unless, we don't have to end it on this note, though. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I'd like to end it on that note. That sounds like a good note. Like a big old toot. Maybe a C2.
All right. I do recommend following Savage memes on Twitter because he's entertaining. I will put that in the description of the chat. Hopefully you enjoyed this. This is a really long, dragged out conversation about very little minutia. I also want to give a shout out to Sargon. Thank you for coming on. Like, you should address your critics instead of hiding behind blocks or whatever. And even Satan would
I don't think he hides behind blocks. If he did, he'd definitely have me blocked, and he was definitely following me. So, I mean, that surprised me a little bit. I guess I confused him with
let's
Oliver.
Man, yeah. Oh my gosh, Oliver. We could talk about Oliver if you really want to. Like, that guy, like, this last night. Oh man, he was basically going on about, like.
I liked Oliver, though. I don't think that he's like, he doesn't make mistakes.
Here's the thing about
purpose,
Oliver. Like,
he needs.
What Oliver needs to do is he just, like, he needs to stop playing Fantasyland. He needs to stop pretending he's Malcolm X.
I'm
Because,
not going to tell people what they need to do, though. I mean, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. If
Well,
he wants
yeah.
to be Malcolm X, then that's, more power to him.
well, the only interest I really have in Oliver Campbell at this point is laughing at him because he's just a joke. He's not even like Sargon level of like where he's
That's
actually.
what I mean. Like, what if he hears that and then you need to talk to him about something in the future?
Hey, he wants to come on this channel. He is more than welcome to come on, and we'll talk it out. I am always happy to have
Yeah,
someone
but
on.
he's not going to feel welcome if you're talking shit about him behind his back.
I'm not talking shit about him behind his back.
You're totally talking shit about him behind his back.
No, I'm not, because this is public. Public information is not behind his back, especially when I tag him in tweets. Well, again, if Oliver, like, if anyone wants to shout out Oliver and say, "Hey, John Kelly's talking shit about you," go ahead, because then he'll just say, "Look
Oh,
how
they totally
bad
will.
he is. He's an audit."
John Kelly is a Gamergate cuck. John Kelly Rose, you cucked Gamergate.
You can send all your hate mail to my account. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. This has been fun, actually. I'm glad we.
Yeah, stop spurring out so much. You can be nice to people even though you disagree with them. And in fact, you can be really nasty to them while still being nice. Like, I had a few major digs on you in this stream, and I've never gotten heated.
That's true. Like, I think we have a different degree. Like, I vehemently disagree with you when it comes to truth, to finding the truth. But when it comes to other things, yeah, that's all right. All right. And that note, have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night.